Chapter 1558. The great Devis was swift and decisive. He immediately summoned a large number of powerhouses. Although they were dissatisfied, they could only obey the great elder's words. After all, the great Devis had a region master as his father. "Great elder, where are we going?" They all felt unhappy. To leave without even explaining what the situation was. "It's a very important matter. You will know when the time comes. It's hard to say for now, but we'll talk about it when we arrive." The great Devis said in a low voice, "Let's go at full speed." The speed of the spirit ship soared to its fastest speed. They were also using the best spirit ship. At the same time, the great Devis placed cores on the spirit ship as if they didn't cost anything. After some spirit ships were modified, they could use cores. With the support of the cores, their speed rose to a terrifying degree. They could instantly pass through half of the divine realm and soon pass through an entire divine realm. He knew that they had to be fast. If the other party changed directions, then they would miss. He knew what this meant to him. This was absolutely a great merit. In his heart, he was grateful to Yi Tianyun. Every time Yi Tianyun brings good luck to him, it really makes him feel very happy. Recruiting this disciple is the most worthwhile. As the many elders saw the great Devis use the cores, they didn't know what to do. Unless it was an urgent situation, no one would use them like this. The cores were so valuable. If they were to use them recklessly, it would be very painful. "Great elder, you brought us all out. There are no elders in the heavenly cultivation divine realm. If you don't explain what is going on, then that is disrespect to us." They originally had some complaints, so now that they were suddenly pulled out, how could they feel happy? This is a battle. I estimate that there will soon be a battle. You had best prepare yourselves. As long as you are prepared, it will be a great merit. The great Devis didn't directly say this because he didn't tell them the details. Everything would have to wait until they arrived. A great merit? They frowned. Was there anything they could do to earn a great merit? Excavate the ancient heavenly god ruins? Or was it a special mission? Everything was unclear. He felt that the boundless heavenly deity was bragging a little. Until now, they did not know what they could do to make a great contribution. The great Devis didn't say much and continued to accelerate forward at full speed. This made them feel unhappy again. Wasn't this clearly whetting their appetite? Even after asking for so long, he didn't say anything more. "We're here." The great Devis controlled the spirit ship and charged into the myriad worlds god realm. When they saw that they had entered the myriad worlds god realm, they all looked at each other. Could it be that the vast divine sect has been invaded? But even if the vast divine sect was invaded, would they be able to pull us over at will? That's right. How is this a great merit? It's just a small matter. They complained and felt very unhappy. He had some expectations before, but now it seemed like it was all nonsense. What great merit! It was a complete scam. They didn't hide it at all. They began to discuss behind the great Devis's back, and all of them wanted to leave. I remember that the rule of the heaven cultivation god realm is to listen to the instructions of a higher level. Have you all forgotten? The great Devis frowned. They hadn't even started fighting, but it was already a mess here. "That's right, but that's a different matter. This is your personal matter. We can choose to refuse. Moreover, this has nothing to do with the heaven cultivation god realm. We can refuse even more." One of the elders was extremely unhappy. "Good. If you don't want to, you can leave now." The great Devis said coldly, "If you want to leave, I won't accompany you." Several of the elders quickly left, and Yi Tianyun didn't say anything, he just let them go. Fortunately, only some of the elders left. There were still many elders who stayed. Most of them supported the great Devis. Even the second elder, who had been defeated by the great Devis, didn't leave. He smelled something different. It was very likely that they weren't going to save the vast divine sect. However, he didn't ask. He would know the truth later. After the great Devis watched them leave, he said to the remaining elders, "There will be a big battle later. Please unite against the enemy. Don't be careless. The enemy is the evil spirit race." Evil spirit race? A cold light burst out of their eyes, but there was more killing intent. They didn't expect that they were going to deal with the evil spirit race. This was something that they had not expected. That's right, it's the evil spirit race. This is the area that my disciple found. It's hidden in the myriad worlds God realm. As for the rest, you'll find out very soon. It's a little late now, mainly because some of the elders have arrived too late and are stalling for time. Therefore, it's very likely that there will be some changes. As he spoke, he controlled the spirit ship and flew towards the evil spirit race's territory. Soon he arrived outside the passage. Then, without hesitation, he rushed in, activating the spirit ship and piercing through it. There were still 1 or 2 heavenly gods inside. Before they could react, the spirit ship had already passed by. After charging in, everyone saw the heavenly Tao shackles. They didn't know what was sealed inside. However, they did see the evil spirit race who was moving to the side. More than half of them have already been moved. Lee Dun-yun swept his gaze over and discovered that those areas had all been taken away. There were only a few areas left. This speed was really fast. They were already fast enough, but they didn't expect the other party to be even faster. It really is the evil spirit race. When they saw it, they immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect that there really was an evil spirit race. Killing the evil spirit race couldn't be considered a great contribution. It could only be considered as carrying out justice on behalf of the heavens. But very quickly, they noticed that the evil spirit race was unlocking the heavenly Tao shackles, revealing groups of cultivators inside. The cultivation of those cultivators seems to be a little low. No, their auras are very different, a bit like an ancient aura? It really is. Could it be that they were all captured by the evil spirit race and trapped here? If they are all ancient bloodlines, then this is more than just a great contribution. They instantly went crazy. This was truly a great contribution. It was simply too great. Thinking back to the elders who had left in anger, they felt some sympathy. When they settled the matter here, all of them would have merit. As for the elders who had left, they could only watch from the side. Chapter 1559. Without hesitation, they rushed out of the spirit ship and charged toward heavenly god Evil Spirit. They immediately cooperated and circled around each other, forming a joint formation. Only then would it be easier to deal with them. Moreover, they were companions to begin with. If they worked together, it would be much easier to deal with them. The heavenly god Evil Spirit's expressions changed when he saw them charging over. He didn't expect them to arrive so quickly. They thought that even if Lee Tianyun escaped, it would take him some time to catch up. Who knew that in the blink of an eye he would bring so many powerful cultivators, more than a dozen heavenly gods. More than a dozen heavenly gods was more than half of the powerful cultivators of the cultivation god realm. The great Devis's eyes lit up when he saw the situation. He hadn't made a wasted trip. As long as he could see something, he would have done a good job. Master, they've already evacuated many areas. They're too fast. Lee Tianyun shook his head. He thought they were fast enough, but they were even faster. They first unlocked the heavenly Tao shackles, then took the people away and quickly left. They were powerful cultivators, so they could directly take them into their inner worlds without any effect. Originally, these small worlds could be moved, but with the heavenly Tao shackles, it wouldn't be so easy to evacuate. They could only obediently unlock them first, then take them into their inner worlds and take them away. It was that simple. It was simple, but it would take a bit of time. If they directly took the small worlds and left, they would really have come empty-handed. It's fine. As long as we can gain something, it's a victory. The great Devis laughed. Stay here for now. Leave this to us. It looks like there are a lot of powerful cultivators here. We'll have to ask for reinforcements. There were many heavenly god Evil Spirit here, so it would take some effort to deal with them. Since Lee Tianyun had killed many of them, they didn't need to deal with too many. How dare you trespass on our territory? At this time, the medium heavenly deity descended. His incomparably powerful aura pressed down, causing all of them to freeze. They were actually forced to a stop. There were many elders present, but none of them were at the level of an intermediate heavenly god. This was the difference between a grade 5 god realm and a grade 4 god realm. If the other party stayed in a grade 4 god realm, it was very likely that he had a grade 5 god realm backing him up. When the great Devis saw that it was a mid-level celestial god, his face darkened. He didn't think that there would be such a powerful being here, but it wasn't unexpected. It was impossible that there were no experts guarding this place. It was just a little too strong. Your territory? The great Devis said coldly, the evil spirit race also has territory in this area. You vile creatures, haven't you harmed enough cultivators in the battle of god emperors? I didn't expect you to not know your place and even imprison so many cultivators here. They were all extremely disgusted with the evil spirit race. Most of the forces were extremely disgusted with the evil spirit race. It was impossible to wipe them all out. They were so widely distributed that it was impossible to wipe them all out. Thus, there were still some evil spirit race left. As long as they did not get close to him, they would not care. Now that they were in the myriad realms god realm, they felt extremely disgusted. I was wondering who was so arrogant. So it's the great Devis. People from the heaven cultivation god realm still dare to interfere. Heavenly god Valen sneered. Be sensible and pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, your heaven cultivation god realm will have no place here. This evil spirit god was threatening instead, not afraid of the great Devis at all. It seems like you still recognize me? The great Devis said indifferently. I didn't expect that I would be quite famous. Of course, a hothead. Why wouldn't I know? Heavenly god Valen said disdainfully. Your heaven cultivation god realm can still survive in a grade 4 god realm, but what about a grade 5 god realm? Think carefully, don't think too highly of yourself. Don't really think that the other god realms will have a problem with us. His words were very straightforward and even carried a threat. To put it bluntly, his backer was a grade 5 god realm. Why would the great Devis dare to mess around? The rest of the elders immediately did not dare to move. Thinking about it carefully, the pressure was really great. If they were suppressed by a grade 5 god realm, they might really be seriously injured. What a joke. If you were so calm, why were you in such a hurry to retreat? Why didn't you just open up and let everyone watch? The great Devis sneered. Don't think that we're all fools. You're just stalling for time now. All of you, but if they were so domineering, they would have come at us directly or attacked everywhere. What was the point of hiding? Yun smiled at the side. As expected of his master, he was not scared by a few simple words. If he was scared by this, then he must have been kicked in the head by a donkey. From all the aspects, they just didn't want to be exposed. If they were exposed casually, there would definitely be big problems. I think you're the real joke and an idiot at that. Heavenly God Wallen said coldly. When did I say that I would come at you directly? I will slowly kill you, secretly and slowly. If you have the ability, why don't you try? They did not dare to do anything openly, but they could do it secretly. Continuous sneak attacks could still cripple a god realm. The elders had ugly expressions. What they feared the most was a sneak attack from behind. It would definitely be very difficult to deal with. The great Devis looked at him with narrowed eyes. When he was about to say something, a voice suddenly came from behind. So what if you want to fight? At this time, a heavenly god walked out from the passage behind them. He stepped on the void and instantly appeared beside them. This person was none other than Region Lord Xiutian. Region Lord Xiutian's cultivation was at the mid-level heavenly god level. He felt no pressure against him. The opponent was only an early-level heavenly venerable, so there was naturally no problem. Region Lord Xiutian. They were excited and were just about to say whether or not they should leave. Now that Region Lord Xiutian had come, they had to decide what to do. Region Lord Xiutian. The great Devis also stood respectfully at the side. Child, you've done well. The cultivation heaven domain lord lightly smiled, revealing a rare smile. Thinking back to how he had always had an ice-cold face before, it had never had any effect, but now he smiled. We just can't lower our heads, especially to the evil spirit race. Chapter 1560. Of course, Empyrean god Wallen was not one of the main culprits. The faction behind him, the evil spirit race, was one of the main culprits. Many factions loathed them, especially those that had been destroyed in the past. They definitely did not want to let the main culprits go. Empyrean god Wallen's expression darkened. As expected, there were still people who knew the truth. Even though Region Lord Xiutian was not an ancient-level existence, he still knew a lot of details. This meant that the Xiutian God Realm's foundation was rather ancient. Perhaps there was an ancient-level existence behind them. Based on this situation, there was definitely an expert supporting them. Otherwise, how could Region Lord Xiutian be so confident? Speechless, Region Lord Xiutian sneered. A bunch of shameless fools. You still want to threaten us? Even if we die, we won't let you go. Back then, we were also destroyed by you. As soon as Region Lord Xiutian finished speaking, he charged toward Empyrean god Wallen. At the same time, he said coldly, "Attack!" Region Lord Xiutian did not waste time. The main thing was that reinforcements had also arrived. Immediately, many more Empyrean gods rushed over and completely sealed off the area, not letting them escape. Region Lord Xiutian had wasted so much time talking to them because he was waiting for reinforcements. Only then would he be completely confident. Before coming, he had said a few more words to stall for time. Now it was different. As soon as reinforcements arrived, they would immediately attack. Go! After hearing the order, the great Devis and the others were invigorated. They charged over and surrounded them. This time, the Empyrean gods they had brought had a suppressive effect. As for Yi Tianyun, he was left to the side. They thought that he could not deal with the Empyrean gods, so he was left to the side. Damn it, let's fight. Empyrean god Wallen was furious. They were all trapped inside. Even if there were other passages, they could not easily escape. So many people had caught up. How could they escape? Thus, they could only fight head-on. Immediately they collided. A battle between Empyrean gods had begun. The Xiutian god realm situation was undoubtedly better. After joining forces to form a formation, it would be easier to suppress them. However, the situation wasn't much better. These Empyrean gods were simply too powerful. After devouring quite a few primordial bloodlines, the evil spirit god's own power had increased dramatically. It was much more difficult to deal with them. Several heavenly gods were needed to suppress a single heavenly spirit god. This was the benefit of bloodline power. Otherwise, why would they keep them in captivity to absorb ancient bloodlines and strengthen their own bloodline density? As the concentration increased, it would be able to erupt with even greater power. However, suppressing them was only a matter of time. If they could suppress them in terms of numbers, then dealing with them naturally wouldn't be a big problem. At that time, it would be a matter of casualties. If the other party was forced into a corner, they would definitely launch a vicious counterattack. Even if he were to die, he would drag a few down with him. As their battle became more and more intense and became white-hot, a figure quietly appeared on the side. Taking advantage of their momentary lapse in concentration, a cold light flashed, and 5 massive dragons shot forth, striking one of the heavenly spirit gods from the back. Boom! This heavenly god was directly killed. The heavenly god elders who were locked in a stalemate with the evil spirit god were all dumbfounded. Just as they were about to go all out, the evil spirit god was instantly killed by Yi Tianyun. The first one. Yi Tianyun's figure flashed, and he hid in the void again, silently leaving this area. Immediately after, he circled to the back of another heavenly spirit god and launched another sneak attack. Again! This heavenly spirit god immediately sensed it. Previously, when Yi Tianyun successfully launched a sneak attack on his companion, many heavenly spirit gods had noticed, so they would definitely be more vigilant. Thus, when Yi Tianyun launched a sneak attack, he immediately turned around to defend. With a loud boom, this heavenly spirit god was sent flying, and the 3 Empyrean spirit treasures all trembled. Overall, he wasn't seriously injured. These heavenly spirit gods had all unleashed their full power. Since they were prepared, they wouldn't be easily killed. They might be able to block Yi Tianyun's attack, But what about the attacks of the heavenly gods behind them? Boom. The heavenly gods behind them wouldn't let go of this opportunity, and they immediately launched a fierce attack, sending the evil spirit god flying and severely injuring him. At this moment, Hyonyun swept over and ruthlessly added a spear strike, instantly killing this heavenly spirit god. His decisiveness made all the elders look at him in a new light, especially with such destructive power. Was this really something an Empyrean could possess? After killing him, Hyonyun very proficiently hid in the void, preparing to launch another sneak attack. This was the effect he wanted. He wanted to coordinate with the attacks of the heavenly gods and use his ghostly figure to achieve a surprise attack. So what if they knew he was sneak attacking? Don't forget, this was a team battle, not a solo battle. It's that human brat. It's him that caused this situation. Heavenly God Avalon's eyes were bloodshot. A huge problem had appeared in this area that had been peaceful all this while. This made him furious, and he wanted nothing more than to crush Hyonyun. However, he was currently unable to split himself and couldn't attend to that side at all. If the sneak attack continued like this, everyone on their side would really die. Most importantly, if they died, they would die. They wouldn't be able to drag a few down with them. This kid is not bad. Regent Lord Xiutian's eyes were full of praise. They didn't expect Hyonyun to be able to do this, and they all had a whole new level of respect for him. Let alone them, even the vast heavenly deities were shocked by this scene. How did Hyonyun's cultivation base break through to become a mid-level heavenly venerable unknowingly? This breakthrough speed, I really don't want to talk about it. The great Devis observed the situation here as he attacked. Hyonyun killed back and forth with great pleasure. These were all heavenly gods. If he could kill a few more, he would be able to happily level up again. Thus, he didn't get tired of this. He wielded the 5-dragon divine spear and weaved back and forth. One by one, the heavenly gods let out painful wails under his sneak attack. If they didn't block, they would be hit. If they tried to block, they would be sneak attacked by the heavenly gods on the side. This kind of feeling was really sullen. They would die without any dignity. Let's die together. At this time, a heavenly god evil spirit was enraged. When he saw Hyonyun charging over with his spear, his body swelled. He looked coldly at Hyonyun and revealed a sinister smile. Boom! Chapter 1561. That's our spirit. When heavenly god Wallen saw this, he laughed loudly. How could such an explosion not kill a middle-level heavenly venerable? Hyonyun's sneak attack had finally reached their limit. Even if they had to self-destruct, they had to kill Hyonyun. Since they would definitely die from the sneak attack, they might as well throw caution to the wind and self-destruct together with Hyonyun. As long as they could kill Hyonyun, everything would be much easier. Perhaps they would still lose. At least they wouldn't be in this situation where they were constantly being sneak attacked, and they couldn't even touch a hair. Just when they thought that Hyonyun would be killed or seriously injured, Hyonyun slowly walked out from the side and said with a smile, "The power of this self-destruction is really not bad. It's a bit like watching fireworks. It's the kind that Fan Yu uses to celebrate festivals. It's really beautiful. Can you detonate a few more?" He wasn't injured at all. Forget about killing him, he didn't even have a scratch on him. At the moment when the other party exploded, Hyonyun immediately teleported away and easily escaped the range of the explosion. It was still quite difficult to injure him. Unless the surrounding space was completely sealed and he couldn't use teleportation, it was impossible to injure him. Heavenly God Wallen's smile froze. He thought that Hyonyun would definitely die, or at least be injured. Who would have thought that he would be completely fine? He was still as lively as ever. I knew he would be fine. The great Devis laughed heartily, feeling extremely carefree. Regent Lord Xiutian also felt extremely carefree. He really thought that Hyonyun would be injured, but now it seemed that he was completely fine. This meant that he could continue to sneak attack and drive them crazy. These guys, let's go. Heavenly God Wallen gritted his teeth. If they continued to delay, they would only be wasting their time and lives. They could only choose to retreat. After sending a mental message, Empyrean god Varen immediately turned and fled into the depths of the minor world. Without question, there had to be an exit within the minor world. However, in the process of their escape, they would definitely be chased and beaten up. In the end, they would definitely be beaten half to death and would not be able to easily fight back. Therefore, they might as well go all out and see if they could defeat them. Who would have thought that Yi Tianyun would be so ruthless and ruin their plans? Even if their combined strength was enough to crush the heavenly gods in the heavenly god realm, under Yi Tianyun's crazy sneak attacks, they could only wait for death. You want to leave? It's too late. How could Region Lord Xiao Tian and the others allow them to escape? Their morale skyrocketed as they chased after them. Yi Tianyun also chased after them. These were all fat sheep, how could he let them go? Following that, they were chased all the way until they threw away their helmets and abandoned their armors. One heavenly deity after another was killed. In the end, Empyrean god Wallen managed to escape. He was the only one who managed to escape. The other Empyrean gods all perished. Empyrean god Wallen's cultivation was high enough, and he also had a lower heavenly god spirit treasure. That was why he was able to escape. However, he was also in a very sorry state. After being beaten up by Region Lord Xiao Tian, how could he possibly be fine? He still managed to escape. Yi Tianyun watched helplessly as Empyrean god Wallen drilled into a special escape channel. This channel was reserved for escape. This type of channel would also recognize the person. Thus, if they wanted to chase after him, they would first have to destroy the divine seal on it before they could leave. By the time they destroyed it, it was unknown where Empyrean god Wallen had escaped to. Thus, they could only give up on chasing after him. Immediately, they all returned to investigate the situation. There were still several areas that had not been taken away. These could be considered good spoils of war. Following that, they all unlocked the shackles of the heavenly Tao and rescued the people inside. There was no need for Yi Tianyun to do anything. The great Devis was a divine inscription master, so there was no need to worry about unlocking the shackles. In the remaining areas, there were those with relatively low cultivation. It was clear that they had first transferred away those with high cultivation or higher quality. Although it was a pity, at least they had saved a lot of people. Too many have been transferred away. If I had come a little earlier, I would have definitely been able to leave more behind. The great Devis knew from Yi Tianyun that there were many areas here. Now that there were only a few areas left, how could he not be angry? The other divine elders lowered their heads in embarrassment, not daring to look at the great Devis. Previously, the great Devis had said that he had urgent matters to attend to, but they had still dragged their feet. By the time they had arrived, a long time had already passed. If they had come back then, they believed that there would have been even more people here. But there were no ifs. Since it had already happened, they only felt a little ashamed. Even if the great Devis wanted to send out a message to kill the evil spirit race and save the cultivators with ancient bloodlines, it was impossible. The emergency message token could only send a message. It could not accurately convey what the situation was. Thus, they had come slowly. In the end, it was because they felt uncomfortable and did not want to listen to the great Devis's orders. It's fine. We've already done very well. At least we know what they're doing. The Cultivation Heaven Domain Lord was very satisfied with his son, and his smile did not stop. He then turned to look at the other elders and said in a low voice, "I don't want to say anything more about your mistakes. This time, the great elder has made a great contribution. Not only did he know the situation here, but he also saved a large number of cultivators with potential. Here, I only want to say one thing. I don't want this to happen a second time." The Cultivation Heaven Domain Lord was really angry. It should have been better, but it was all because of this group of idiots that this situation had occurred. This made him feel very dissatisfied. Fortunately, there were still some people left. Otherwise, they would have really missed out. The most important thing was that it would affect his son's contribution. If they missed out, they would definitely be criticized by others. This was not a good thing for them. Fortunately, they did not miss out. They could justifiably make a great contribution. "Yes, Domain Lord. The many elders were really convinced by the great Devis this time. He had indeed made a great contribution, and it was enough to stabilize his position. After not returning for so long, he suddenly took the position of the great elder. Many people were still not convinced. Although he had won the bet was a bet, not a contribution. Usually, to become a great elder, one had to have enough contribution. Therefore, the great elder and the second elder were only moved back a position, and were not chased away. Unless they made a big mistake, their positions were still very stable. Now it was different. The great Devis had made a great contribution, so he could naturally sit in the position justifiably. At this moment, the great Devis stretched out his hand and gave Lee Tianyun a thumbs up, expressing his gratitude to Lee Tianyun. If it were not for Lee Tianyun, he would not know how to make a contribution. He was usually busy with other things in the cultivation heaven domain, so he could not make a contribution at all. Chapter 1562. After everything was over, all of the cultivators had been relocated. This was within Lee Tianyun's expectations. However, aside from that, there was still one more thing that had yet to be resolved, and that was the matter regarding Heavenly Cultivation God. Heavenly Cultivation God's betrayal made the great Devis extremely furious. However, he didn't say this in front of all of the elders. Instead, he planned to explain this to his father in person. Sometimes, it was better not to act rashly and alert the enemy. After being relocated, the Heaven Cultivation God realm was astonished when they learned of the details of the situation. Who would have thought that something like this could happen? They even managed to save a bunch of very valuable cultivators. In a god realm where prodigies were rampant, they were naturally very welcome to join. After all, their bloodlines were all ancient-level beings. This meant that their bloodlines were much more powerful. If their bloodlines were similar, then they would be equivalent to their ancestors. How could anyone not be shocked by this? As such, the great Devis was immediately promoted to the top, and his prestige was extremely high. Prestige was something that could change at will. As long as one made some contributions, it could change. As such, the great Devis had always wanted to make some contributions to the Heaven Cultivation God realm. However, contributions weren't something that could be casually dropped from the sky. It's about time to report this matter to the Heaven Cultivation God realm. Come with me. The great Devis gestured for Lee Tianyun to come with him. Both of them had made contributions, but Lee Tianyun didn't join them, so the credit belonged to the great Devis. Lee Tianyun nodded and followed along. He had to get justice for this matter. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to face himself. Soon, the two of them arrived at the Heaven Cultivation God Palace. The Heaven Cultivation God was busy assigning these cultivators to different areas. These cultivators all had to cultivate hard. If they wanted to unleash the full potential of their bloodlines, they had to be allocated reasonably. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to unleash the full potential of their bloodlines. Xiutian Region Lord. The great Devis led Lee Tianyun inside. In front of outsiders, they had to address him as Region Lord. Lee Tianyun was not an outsider, but as long as it was someone else, he would have to address him respectfully. Grand Elder, you're here? This time, you've really done a great service. I'm really happy. For some reason, the Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord was very happy. One must know that when the vast heavenly deity came to prove himself, the heavenly deity didn't support him. Instead, he supported the elders. Now, his feelings had completely changed. He was completely on the side of the great Devis. Without a doubt, that was a ruse. If he wanted to change the current situation, it wouldn't be easy for him as the region lord. He would need to rely on external forces to change it. The inside was already rotten to the core, so he needed to chop off the rotten areas with an axe from the outside. There were already some initial effects, but it would still take some time to completely change it. The great Devis were working hard on this, and so were the Xiutian region lord. Domain Lord Xiutian, there's an important matter this time, and it's a very serious matter. Although it can't be considered a great service, it will affect the direction of the Xiutian divine realm. The great Devis said solemnly. What is it? The smile on Cultivation Sky Domain Lord's face gradually disappeared. Heavenly God Xiutian is a traitor. He wanted to kill me and even allied with the heavenly gods of the other divine realms to surround me. Fortunately, I left quickly. Otherwise, I would have been surrounded and even killed. The great Devis took out a piece of paper and handed it over. This is the corresponding list of traitors and the forces that colluded with them. The reason they did this is to get rid of me so that their people can seize power. This way, when the region lord changes in the future, many things can be changed. If there were no accidents, the next successor would be the great Devis. Therefore, as long as the great Devis was eliminated, everything would change. The next successor definitely wouldn't be the great Devis. It could be the second elder, or even the third elder. After the heavenly cultivation domain lord took the paper and glanced at it, his expression became frighteningly gloomy. After a moment, he said, word by word, "If this is true, then it really is a change in the situation. It will affect the strength of the heavenly cultivation domain. Do you know what this means?" "I do. It's not that I'm dead. I'm just afraid that they will use this to join forces with the other divine realms to devour the Xiutian divine realm. When that time comes, the Xiutian divine realm won't be the Xiutian divine realm anymore. It will belong to someone else." The great Devis said in a solemn voice. "Where did you hear this?" Cultivation Sky Domain Lord asked with a solemn expression. "My disciple said that heavenly god Xiutian was in a critical situation. He performed a soul search and found the corresponding memories," the great Devis said. Cultivation Sky Domain Lord raised his head and looked into Tianyun's eyes. His gaze was filled with an invasive intent, and it struck directly into Tianyun's heart. If one's soul wasn't powerful enough, their legs would definitely give out from under them, and they would kneel to the ground. However, Tianyun was completely unscathed. His soul was far more powerful than his cultivation base. Cultivation Sky Domain Lord was a little surprised to see that Tianyun was completely unscathed. He didn't think that Tianyun would be so calm. It looked like he really was quite powerful. "Do you trust your disciple that much?" Cultivation Sky Domain Lord asked. "That's right, I trust my disciple that much." The great Devis spoke in a firm voice. "If you don't even trust your own disciple, then how can you be their master?" These things could indeed be fabricated. Even images could be fabricated. There was nothing that couldn't be fabricated. As long as one wanted to fabricate something, nothing would be an issue. However, the great Devis trusted his disciple without the slightest bit of doubt. "All right," Cultivation Sky Domain Lord said in a solemn voice, "then give me some time to investigate this thoroughly." The great Devis trusted Tianyun, but the Cultivation Sky Domain Lord didn't trust Tianyun. Even though Tianyun had performed a meritorious deed, he didn't dare to trust him recklessly. This was a matter that concerned the entire Heaven Cultivation God realm. It wasn't a family matter, and it wasn't something that could be easily resolved by executing a single elder. On that piece of paper was a long list of all the elders and powers involved. If he were to do anything, the entire Heaven Cultivation God realm would be mobilized. No problem. The great Devis wasn't surprised. It would be strange if he just nodded casually. Unless he was the domain lord, he wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Then the great Devis left with Tianyun. After leaving, the great Devis said, "You don't have to worry about this. The Cultivation Sky Domain Lord will definitely investigate thoroughly." He said he would investigate, so he will definitely investigate thoroughly. After all, other people need evidence. Chapter 1563. Tianyun already knew that this wasn't something that could be easily resolved. Such a huge Heaven Cultivation God realm couldn't be handled so carelessly. It was unreasonable to arrest him just by listening to his side of the story. In the end, it was because they didn't have enough power. If Xiutian Domain Lord had seen it with his own eyes, then there would be no need for evidence. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he needed to look into it and find evidence. When the other disciples asked if they had any evidence, how would Xiutian Domain Lord explain? Sometimes, it wasn't about whether Xiutian Domain Lord trusted them, but whether others trusted Tianyun. What could an outsider prove? What evidence could he have? If it were Yi Tianyun's forces, it wouldn't matter what Yi Tianyun did. But now it was different. Yi Tianyun could understand the complicated relationship. The relationship was so messy that it affected many elders and deacons. If they were uprooted, the heaven cultivation god realm would be half crippled. This wasn't an exaggeration. Otherwise, Xiaotian domain lord wouldn't be so cautious. Some things made him angry, but he had to be rational. Without rationality, the heaven cultivation god realm would really be crippled. This wasn't the god realm of the three realms. There was no power of faith like Yi Tianyun, let alone his ability to carry out orders. Domain lords weren't invincible, and they couldn't do whatever they wanted. Otherwise, why would there be so many elders? The elders were the ones who restricted the domain master's authority, and they could influence the domain master's decisions at crucial moments. In the god realm of the three realms, whatever Yi Tianyun said was the law. No one could question his decisions. This was the difference between them. What Yi Tianyun needed was absolute control. He was domineering. He would use whatever methods he needed and would never be lenient. After saying goodbye to the great Devis, he chose to return to the god realm of the three realms. He had saved so many cultivators this time, so it was time to come back and make arrangements. After returning, he communicated with Shi Shuayun. She immediately arranged for a few planets to release the rescued cultivators. After being released one by one, they were very excited and very grateful for this. How could they not be excited to meet such a savior? Yi Tianyun's request was very simple. He wanted them to live here and join the three realms god realm. Just like other cultivators, they had to complete missions and obtain contribution points to exchange for resources. They had no objections to this at all. To them, as long as they were not harassed by the evil spirit race, this place was heaven. Not to mention doing missions, even if they were asked to sweep the floor, they wouldn't have the slightest objection. After all, every once in a while, he would have to worry about whether he would be captured and devoured. He had always been worried and afraid. That kind of feeling was extremely uncomfortable. It was simply a nightmare. Now that Yi Tianyun had awakened them from their nightmare, they were naturally extremely grateful. As for the arrangements, they would listen to Yi Tianyun, and their loyalty to Yi Tianyun skyrocketed. However, it could only be said to be a part of it. It would still take some time for him to be completely loyal to them. It would take some time to assimilate them before they could become one with the three realms god realm. They have limitless potential and all have ancient bloodlines. If we make use of them, the effects will be astonishing. Of course, everything has to be done naturally. We can't force it. Yi Tianyun was still very interested in these ancient bloodlines. If they were to marry into the three realms god realm, the descendants would definitely be stronger. However, he would not force the marriage. That would be too disgusting. Don't you think I know that? Shi Shuayun rolled her eyes at him and smiled. This time, you brought back another group of experts. It seems that our three realms god realm will become stronger very soon. It will become stronger very soon, and it will become stronger very quickly. Yi Tianyun's eyes burned. He didn't have much time. Within 1,000 years, he had to stand firm. He had to be above average in the 4th grade god realm. Otherwise, he would be finished. Unless he stayed here to guard, the three realms god realm would definitely be finished. However, he would have to leave sooner or later. He couldn't stay here forever. Hence, it was especially important for him to strengthen his own forces. In the remaining time, Yi Tianyun participated in the arrangements and paid attention to the situation. At the same time, he understood their situation so that he could make other arrangements. Following that, he went to his disciples to give them some pointers. Their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. They were much stronger than before. Yi Tianyun was very satisfied. He had dug out their potential. They would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. That's about it. That's the rest. After making some arrangements, Yi Tianyun returned to the courtyard to rest for a while. He had been too busy. He needed a good rest. However, he didn't lie down to sleep. Instead, he started cultivating. Cultivating was a race against time. He was no exception. Right now, he needed to condense the dark core and take the dark trial. This was the last trial. As long as he completed it, the 3 realms would truly be his. Previously, he had done it to slow down. Now that his cultivation had broken through, there shouldn't be any problems. He could easily deal with a lower heavenly god, so the dark trial was naturally not a problem. Previously, he could pass the trial alone. Now that his cultivation had increased by so much, it would undoubtedly be easier. Then he immediately started to condense the dark planet. He found many dark cores in his inventory. These were all obtained from the evil spirit race. Without any hesitation, he absorbed them all. He, who had many cores, was very familiar with cultivating these things. Without any difficulty, the dark planet was easily condensed, forming a 3rd-grade dark planet. The 3rd grade was relatively low. It was still too ordinary for him. However, it was already very good that he could condense it. Now that I have condensed 8 planets, I still need 2 more. Now that he had 8 planets, 5 of them were equivalent to the 5 elements core. Thunder planet, light planet, and dark planet, that was 8. 8 planets. That was enough to scare people to death. Now, if someone could condense 2 planets, they would be grinning from ear to ear. Yet he could condense 8. This was not the end. He still needed to condense 2 more to reach the standard of breaking through to the heavenly god realm. Forget it. There's no hurry. There's still a lot of time. There's still a long way to go. He was only at the early stage of the intermediate heavenly venerable stage. He still had a lot of experience. Even if he killed more than 10 heavenly gods, he would need to kill more than 10 to level up. Chapter 1564. Tianyun arrived at the entrance. There was only the dark trial left in the entire area. As long as he could pass it, he would become the true master of the 3 realms. He had a hunch that if he could complete the final dark trial, he would be able to thoroughly understand the truth of this place, which was the truth of the 3 realms. It would be very clear which expert had left it behind. However, even if he didn't pass it, he could guess that it must be related to the Divine Spirit clan. As for the details, he would have to go in to find out. The truth of the 3 realms. Tianyun paused for a moment, then lifted his feet and walked towards the dark trial without any hesitation. When he arrived at the entrance of the passage, he immediately felt a devouring force extending out from inside. There was a strong sense of oppression. This kind of oppressive feeling was much stronger than the other light trials. It was the same as the last 2 trials, so why was the dark trial more difficult? Tianyun tidied himself up a little and then went inside. As soon as he entered, he immediately felt a dark, devouring force surging out from inside and wrapping around him. Instantly, Tianyun felt that his surroundings were completely blocked. Whether it was the exit behind him or the passage inside, he couldn't see anything. There was only darkness. He couldn't see anything. I can't see anything. Tianyun released his spiritual sense and found that it was useless. He couldn't detect the situation around him at all. It could even be said that he couldn't detect anything. He could only see a pitch-black area. After his fruitless exploration, he lifted his feet and walked forward. After taking 2 steps, he felt a little pain as if he had kicked a stone. He reached out to touch it and found that it wasn't a mechanism, but a wall. He didn't expect there to be a wall here. Following him, he found that there really was a wall in front of him, and it looked like a passage. He followed it and quickly found another right-angled turn. However, he didn't follow it. Instead, he touched the side and found another fork. This meant that there was a fork in the passage, and he didn't know where it led. Is this a maze? Tianyun's heart sank. This completely blocked his vision and spiritual sense. Since both were blocked, he could only rely on his sense of touch to walk. As for using fire to illuminate the place, that was even more impossible. With his cultivation, he could clearly see areas that were even darker than this place. This completely blocked his line of sight, making it impossible for him to clearly see what was happening outside. It would have been fine if it was just a simple shield, but he was even allowed to walk. From the looks of it, it wasn't the kind that could be easily passed. He needed to block all his senses. How was he supposed to pass through this maze? After exploring a certain distance, he completely understood that this was really a maze, and there was no normal path. He casually explored a section of the road and found a bunch of forks. There wasn't a single normal path. This made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. It wasn't that dangerous, but he couldn't find the exit at all, nor could he find the entrance from before. It would be a tragedy if they were trapped here forever. How are we supposed to leave? Lee Tianyun was speechless. He couldn't see anything along the way. It would have been fine if it was a straight path, but now he encountered a bunch of detours in the maze. How was he supposed to get out? After making one round, he didn't even know where he was. Even if it's a dark trial, it doesn't have to be so dark, right? Lee Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, there isn't any danger. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. If someone were to sneak up on him, or if there was something under his feet, it would be extremely troublesome. His spiritual sense was useless, and his eyes were also useless. After checking for a while, he stopped and didn't continue forward. The main thing was that he couldn't see anything. If he walked blindly, he wouldn't be able to get out of here. However, this must be a special kind of test. Since it's a trial, there must be a way to get out. I can't just rely on luck to find my way out. If I only rely on luck, can it still be called a trial? Lee Tianyun frowned, thinking about how to get out of this situation. Then, he sat down to meditate, thinking about how to get out. My spiritual sense is useless, and my eyes are useless. What else can I use to explore the way? Lee Tianyun frowned. There must be a very important trial here. This was the same as the previous trials. It wasn't set up here for no reason. There was some meaning to it. After thinking for a while, his eyes suddenly lit up. He jumped up from his meditation and said in surprise, "There's still perception." Perception was a very primitive sensing ability. It could sense the surrounding environment, but the sensing range was too small. To put it bluntly, it was a kind of spatial sensing. It was different from spiritual sense in that it wasn't subject to too many restrictions. It could sense the surrounding space, but the range was too small. Ordinary cultivators rarely practiced it. However, perception was very useful. It could sense if there was any danger nearby. Some could even sense the cultivators hiding in the void. This was something that the naked eye and spiritual sense couldn't do. However, because the range was too small, it wasn't used in normal situations. Now that he was here, he could use it. Then, he began to magnify his perception. Like his own eyes, it spread out in all directions. Soon, the surroundings formed into a picture that entered his mind. Lee Tianyun immediately saw that within 10 meters of his range, there were several forks that led to different areas. Gradually, it became clearer and clearer. He could see the lines on the walls and some small gravel on the ground. He could clearly sense them. This was the power of perception. The effect was somewhat beyond his imagination. Perfect. Even if my eyes can't see and my spiritual sense can't detect, my perception can still clearly sense the surrounding situation. However, the difficulty is still a little high. If I maintain it for a long time, it will still consume quite a bit of energy. Lee Tianyun quickly sprinted forward. Under his perception, the surrounding situation had nowhere to hide. Everything was clearly presented in his mind. The surrounding terrain and the surrounding situation could all be sensed. Compared to blindly touching before, it was really much better. It was not a situation on the same level at all. Under such circumstances, he could run quickly along the way. There was no need to move slowly. That kind of speed was really too slow. It was not a situation on the same level at all. With this kind of speed, even if he encountered a dead end, he could quickly turn around and return. This way, even if he made a mistake, at least he could react quickly. It was much faster than before. Chapter 1565. Lee Tianyun quickly shuttled back and forth in the maze, trying to find the exit. According to the situation, he would only need to spend some time to find the exit. After all, as long as he didn't fumble around, he would be able to find the exit. Even if the area was huge, he could find the exit as long as he spent some time. Moreover, he had no other choice but to use these ordinary methods. If his spiritual sense was useful, his speed would definitely increase by a lot, and he would be able to get out easily. Now, he could only look around for the exit. It was a stupid method, but he could only use this method. This level is really sick. Even if it's a dark trial, it shouldn't be so cruel, right? Lee Tianyun was very helpless. He shuttled back and forth in the maze, and at the same time, he kept remembering the situation around him, forming a special space in his mind. Although it was the same, he would leave a small mark on the side, so that he wouldn't walk this path again. As time passed, he quickly shuttled back and forth in the maze. He didn't know how long he had been running, but he felt that he had already run a long distance. If converted to a planet, he didn't know how many laps he had run. With his current cultivation, he could travel thousands of miles in an instant, which was absolutely shocking. But here, it was like an endless road, with no end in sight. He made a lot of marks, and he didn't encounter any later, which meant that he didn't go the wrong way. Under the condition of not going the wrong way, he still couldn't reach the end. It had to be said that this area was really too vast. However, it was indeed very vexing. First, he ran to the fork in front of him. Then, there were many more forks. After randomly choosing one to enter, there were dozens more forks. He was on the verge of collapsing. He didn't even know how many forks there were. Could it be that even with perception, I can't escape from here? Lee Tianyun frowned. Logically, he should be able to pass this way, but he couldn't leave at all, and was trapped in this area. As for regretting it, it was already too late. He couldn't use the teleportation divine stone, and he couldn't use teleportation to leave either. He was completely trapped here. It seems that the real difficulty isn't facing powerful enemies, but these endless traps. Lee Tianyun finally stopped, walked in front of one of the walls, and then waved his fist and smashed it. Boom! A hole was smashed into the wall. Since that's the case, I'll break through the walls one by one and see if I can make a path. Lee Tianyun was furious. He had no choice but to use the most violent method. He would smash the walls one by one, which would serve as a marker. Moreover, he would definitely walk in a straight line. If he walked in a straight line, he would definitely be able to get out, right? Then he smashed his way down. He had to admit that the walls here were really hard. However, under his violent fists, he still managed to kill one with each punch. His energy was somewhat consumed, but now that things had come to this, he couldn't care less. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to get out of here if he fought his way through. After smashing countless walls, Lee Tianyun's hands turned red. In the end, he used the 5-dragon divine spear to stab at the wall. With the help of the 5-dragon divine spear, it was as if the gods were helping them. They easily broke through one wall after another as if they were cutting through tofu. But even after he broke through many walls, he still couldn't see the end. After breaking through one wall, there would be another. There was no end to it. I still haven't reached the end? Lee Tianyun stopped. He felt that something was amiss. Even if it was a giant planet with his previous speed, he would be able to punch through it. Now, there was still no end, which surprised him. When he turned his head to look behind him, there was still a big hole behind him. However, when he stretched his head to sense the area further away, he found that the wall slightly further behind him had completely recovered. It actually recovered. Lee Tianyun frowned. From this, he could see many things. It was even possible that he had fallen into a strange array. Then, he probed deeper but didn't find any clues. Not to mention a divine seal, there wasn't even a trace. But if there was, he would have discovered it a long time ago and not now. Strange. Lee Tianyun's eyes darkened. It seemed that he had really fallen into a strange trap. Moreover, it wasn't the kind that was easy to escape from. As expected, the dark trial wasn't that easy to break through. It was much more difficult than the light trial. The light trial relied on brute force to pass it. Here, whether it was brute force or techniques, he had used them all. Who knew that there would be no effect at all? He had to admit that it was too strange. For the first time, he felt that he couldn't exert his strength. He didn't continue to destroy the wall. If it was effective, it would have succeeded a long time ago. He wouldn't be trapped here. Do I have to use another method? At this time, he deeply understood that there were such strange methods in the world. This kind of array was probably of a higher level. It wouldn't be easy to break it. After pacing back and forth for a while, he stared at the top of his head. He thought about it carefully. He hadn't checked the top of his head yet. When he looked up at the sky, he naturally sensed the ceiling. There was no bright spot. As he probed along the way, he found that it was very ordinary. It was no different from underground. But as he carefully probed, he gradually began to reveal a clue, the trace of a divine seal. This divine seal was hidden very deeply. It was just inside the wall. It just happened that there was a trace of it on the wall that he had destroyed. If it wasn't for his strong perception, he really wouldn't have sensed it. Now that he sensed it, his eyes immediately lit up. It's actually hidden on the ceiling. How is this designed? Lee Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Usually, arrays were set up underground. It was mainly because there were all kinds of energy crystals buried underground or to attract underground spiritual qi. That way, the array could be maintained. Therefore, normally, people would look directly at the ground to find a way to break the array. But now, it was directly above his head. This wasn't just strange, it was strange to the extreme. If he hadn't looked carefully, he really wouldn't have thought that it would be on the ceiling even if he racked his brains. Normally, if it was set up, it definitely wouldn't be able to last for too long. It would run out of energy very quickly. Without energy, no matter how strong the array was, it wouldn't be able to operate. This was just like cultivators. Without energy, no matter how strong their cultivation was, they wouldn't be able to use it. They would just lie on the ground and be at the mercy of others. As long as I find it, everything will be much easier. Chapter 1566. After Lee Tianyun found the divine seal, he quickly began to break it. The difficulty was quite high, but for him, it wasn't a problem. As long as he could break it, he would rather slow down. It was better than going around in circles. At that time, there would be no way out. After a period of time, the divine seal was finally broken. After breaking it, the surrounding dark area suddenly disappeared without a trace, turning into a very ordinary maze. This maze wasn't that big. There were only 3 forks and 3 straight lines. There weren't any more than that. This meant that he had been crazily running before, going back and forth in circles in these areas. As for making a mark, it was even more meaningless, as it would disappear on its own. Even the walls could be restored, let alone a mere mark. After recovering, he fell into a dead end and could only go around in circles. The overall area was only the size of a small courtyard. If he ran a little, he would run out of space. But he had been going around in circles for a long time. It was as if he had run the size of several planets. It was really a waste of time. It seems that this trial not only requires proficiency in perception, but also a high-level divine carving master. Lee Tianyun shook his head helplessly. There is no sign outside the trial. If he just casually broke in, wouldn't he be dead for sure? This trial required a divine carving master to pass. Ordinary cultivators would find it extremely difficult to break through. Unless one's cultivation was very high, it was impossible to forcefully break through the great array here. At least within the Empyrean realm, it was impossible to achieve this step. One must be at least a heavenly god level or higher to achieve this step. Moreover, one must be a very strong heavenly god. After breaking through, he saw the exit and entrance in front of him. There was basically no detour. It had to be said that after breaking through, the scene he saw was completely different. Before, he thought that it was a huge maze, but after breaking through it, he found himself going around in circles. Lee Tianyun didn't have any temper after being fooled. Who would have thought that the great array would be engraved on the ceiling? After Lee Tianyun lifted his foot and walked out, he turned his head and looked over. He saw a thick ceiling above him, causing him to be startled. The dark training area is probably underground. Now, he knew why the formation was carved on the surface. It was because the surface belonged to the underground, and there was a spirit vein or something that continuously provided energy, thus achieving the effect of maintaining the formation. In that case, it would be feasible to carve the formation on it. Lee Tianyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he found out why he could do this. It seemed that everything had been planned from the very beginning. He turned his gaze to the front again. It was still pitch black in front of him, but there was a belt of light in the middle, which meant that as long as he crossed it, he would truly enter that pitch black space. Seems like the owner of this place is really addicted. Lee Tianyun was speechless when he saw the environment in front of him. Even if it was a secret trial, there was no need to be so crazy, right? Was he really black all the way until the very end? If that was the case, it wouldn't be easy to pass. It was already so difficult when they had just entered. Who knew how difficult it would be later on? He paused for a moment, but in the end, he still stepped forward and walked into the pitch-black space. Previously, he had consumed some energy, but since he wasn't injured, he could recover with a little replenishment. It wasn't a big deal. Then, when he stepped into the pitch-black space, all his vision, including his spiritual sense, was blocked again. It felt exactly the same as before. There was no change at all. This method was still the same as before. Did this mean that he had to continue looking for the god's seal to break? He immediately released his perception and explored his surroundings. In a short while, he sensed the situation nearby. He saw that there was a formation under his feet. There was no doubt that it was the god's seal formation. I found it so quickly? Lee Tianyun was stunned. It was so easy this time? This was really too strange. Or rather, it should be said that everything was too easy. He could find it so quickly. This was really too surprising. Previously, it took him half a day to find it. Now it was so easy. How could he not feel strange? Just as he was thinking about how to break it, a murderous intent suddenly came from behind him. He subconsciously dodged to the side. The moment he dodged, a deep mark appeared in the area where he was. However, it healed very quickly. Lee Tianyun couldn't see anyone. He only saw a deep mark in the area where he was just standing. If he hadn't dodged just now, he would have been torn in half. If he was any better, he would have been seriously injured. However, under his perception, he couldn't find anyone. The range of his perception was too small. At most, he could only sense within a range of 10 meters. He couldn't sense anything further. This meant that the enemy could see him, but he couldn't see them. He could only be in a passive state of defense. In a state of constant defense, he had to continuously break the formation. Just thinking about it made him feel a little scared. It's really not easy. This time, there are many enemies. If the formation is still hidden, how can I play? Lee Tianyun knew what the purpose of this trial was. It was either to kill the enemy or to break the formation under the fierce attack of the enemy. No matter which one it was not easy. If he wanted to kill the enemy, he had to at least know where the enemy was. As for breaking the formation could be found. However, if the enemy kept attacking, it would be difficult to break. As he was thinking, he felt a killing intent behind him. As long as the enemy's attack was within 10 meters, he would be able to sense it immediately. Lee Tianyun stepped forward, and the 5-dragon divine spear instantly appeared in his hand, and he stabbed the spear with full force. Swish! Lee Tianyun's spear was as fast as lightning, but it hit an afterimage of a black shadow. The attack didn't hit anything, but the enemy's attack still fell on Lee Tianyun. Boom! Lee Tianyun used his empty left hand to block the attack and was sent flying. At this moment, there was a deep cut on his arm, and his arm was almost cut into two. What a strong attack! Lee Tianyun sucked in a breath of cold air. This attack had at least the power of a heavenly venerable. Under normal circumstances, a heavenly venerable could be easily killed. However, it was completely different now. He couldn't see where the enemy was. How could he fight in such a situation? Lee Tianyun quickly healed the injury on his arm. He frowned. Even if his perception could quickly detect the enemy, there was a limit to what he could do within 10 meters. Chapter 1567. Lee Tianyun doesn't have much time to rest. As long as he stands in the same place for a while, he will be attacked. There is almost no blind spot. Where the sneak attack comes from, it depends on the mood of the opponent. Sometimes it will come from behind, sometimes directly from the front. No matter where it comes from, he can feel it. It's a test of his reaction. The distance within 10 meters gives him a very limited time to prepare. Therefore, his nerves are tense, and he is ready to fight at any time. Based on the current situation, it would be extremely difficult to break the formation here. It is difficult enough to deal with this abnormal guy, but to break this big formation, the difficulty is even higher. If I die, the 3 realms will become a masterless thing again, right? Lee Dong-yun felt very speechless. Even if it is a little difficult, it should not be so fatal, right? Can't you be a little more gentle? Why is it so deadly? Shio! The attack came again. Lee Dong-yun quickly dodged to the side, and at the same time threw a spear. This time did not hit the opponent, just hit the air, and did not tear the void. The void here is extremely stable. It is not easy to tear the void. Still did not hit. Lee Dong-yun felt very angry. His attack is useless. He has been in a passive position. It really feels very uncomfortable. If this continues, how can I play? Void. Lee Dong-yun's eyes narrowed. Is this guy hiding in the void? It is not impossible for the opponent to have the void bloodline. He met an opponent before who often hid in the void. Because the space is very stable, it is equivalent to secretly attacking him in a solid room. It is extremely disgusting. Now he also has the power of void, but he can't enter the void here. It means he can't kill the opponent. If it is inside the void, then don't force me. Lee Dong-yun sneered, and immediately moved to the system, aimed at one of the bloodline energy, and fiercely clicked to upgrade. Ding! Congratulations to player Lee Dong-yun. Successfully upgraded the void bloodline to level 4. Lee Dong-yun spent a lot of crazy points to upgrade his void bloodline to level 4. This time he really went all out. Anyway, the void bloodline was still very powerful to him. This was especially so when it came to killing invisibly, so he often used this void bloodline. After upgrading his void bloodline to level 4, his figure flashed and he really did enter the void. After entering the void, he immediately felt the scene before him brighten up. It was no longer pitch black like before. Although it was still very dark here, many restrictions had disappeared. For example, the line of sight and spiritual sense had been completely released. The Great Formation was indeed a great formation. At the very least, this great formation could not restrict the situation inside the void. Otherwise, even their own people would not be able to enter the void at will. After entering, he immediately saw a black shadow floating beside him. His appraisal eye finally gave him some information. Previously, it was pitch black, and the appraisal eye could only identify based on his own eyes. If he couldn't even see, how could he identify? It turns out to be a tool spirit with void bloodline. Lee Dong-yun looked at the black shadow in front of him and immediately knew that it was a tool spirit. Besides a tool spirit, what else could there be here? How did you come in? The tool spirit was stunned by Lee Dong-yun. He was the master of this place. He controlled the space in this area. No one else could come in easily. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, Lee Dong-yun came in? It means that Lee Dong-yun's ability in the void far surpassed him. Shio. The answer was a domineering spear. 5 dragons roar. 5 huge dragons whizzed over, and an extremely powerful force directly suppressed it, smashing the artifact spirit into smithereens. This tool spirit was just an upper heavenly master. Under his strong attack and the title of Super Heavenly Master, it was naturally killed instantly. The tool spirit was blasted into pieces, but the tool spirit did not die. Even if he is invincible, he lives by relying on treasures. Unless the treasure is destroyed, it is very difficult for the tool spirit to die. Although he is not dead, his situation is not much better. He will definitely need to spend some effort to reform. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lee Dong-yun quickly came out of the void and began to quickly destroy the array. He did not know where the tool spirit's body was, so it was difficult to destroy it. Moreover, he did not really want to kill this tool spirit. As long as he becomes the master of this place, all these things will be his. He definitely does not want to destroy his own things. Therefore, he can only quickly destroy the array to pass this trial. Soon, he destroyed the array one after another. At this time, the tool spirit reformed at the side. However, this time, he did not attack. Instead, he watched silently from the side. Are you not going to attack? Lee Onyun saw the tool spirit standing there in a daze, as if he had become stupid. The tool spirit said in a low voice, "You are stronger than me. There is no point in continuing to attack you." Lee Onyun instantly laughed. As expected of an intelligent tool spirit, he knows that he can't beat him. If he continued to attack fiercely, it would actually just be a little interference. Even his strongest trump card would be useless. Then what is the point of fighting? Following which he easily destroyed the array. Instantly his eyes opened up. It is just a very ordinary hall. There are a few god seals carved under his feet. After destroying it, everything returned to its original state. This means that he passed this trial just like that. Congratulations, you have successfully passed the trial. You can continue forward or choose to withdraw. The tool spirit at the side floated over and explained. Withdraw? Lee Onyun was startled. He hasn't even reached the end and he is already asked to withdraw? Yes, this is the last trial. The difficulty is the highest. In history, it is the most difficult level. With your cultivation, it is very likely that you will fail. The result of failure is death. The tool spirit explained, of course, if you withdraw now, you can come back next time. It does not mean that you have to pass to stop. Lee Onyun finally understood what was going on. It turned out that he was going to take a break or go cultivate for a while before continuing. This was something that had never happened before. Either he went all the way to the end, or he had to start all over again. But now it was different. This trial was directly divided into 2 stages. So, if I had chosen to pass the dark trial before, wouldn't that be the same as seeking death? Lee Onyun wondered. No, if your strength isn't enough and you aren't a divine inscription master, you won't be allowed to come in. The tool spirit patiently explained. Chapter 1568. The most difficult level? Lee Onyun looked at the tunnel in front of him. It was still pitch black. Hearing this, it seemed like once he stepped in, he would never be able to come out. Yes, this is the most difficult level. Please choose carefully. If you want to go in now, you can. The artifact spirit took on the responsibility of explaining. What is the content of the trial inside? Lee Onyun asked. I'm very sorry, I can't tell you. I can only say that it is very dangerous. It is very likely that you will die inside. The artifact spirit said solemnly. All right. Lee Onyun didn't expect the artifact spirit to say anything. The artifact spirit definitely wouldn't say the details. Otherwise, if it explained everything clearly, how could he play? Looking at the tunnel in front of him, as long as he completed the last level, the 3 realms would be his. Now he had 2 choices. Leave for now or go straight through. After going through, everything would be over and the truth would be revealed. With my current strength, how confident am I in passing? Lee Onyun changed the way he asked. The artifact spirit stared at him for a while and said, 50%. 50%? Lee Onyun was silent. The artifact spirit definitely didn't know how strong he was. It probably evaluated him based on the battle just now, or based on his performance in the trial. No matter which stage it was, to give him a 50% chance seemed really difficult. Could it be that he really had to leave this place and cultivate for a while before coming back? Just as he was thinking whether he should go straight in or leave to cultivate before coming back, his jade pendant suddenly broke. His expression changed and he chose to leave without hesitation. After leaving, he disappeared without stopping. He didn't even say a word before leaving the 3 realms and coming to the vast Shungshan sect. Senior brother, what happened? The jade pendant in Lee Onyun's hand broke meant that something big had happened to the vast Shungshan sect. Otherwise, the jade pendant wouldn't have broken. Only in very serious situations would there be this distress signal. You're already here? Sword C Heavenly Paragon and the rest were all waiting here. They looked at Lee Onyun with astonishment. He had just crushed it and he was already here. Wasn't this speed a little too fast? After Itanyun arrived, he searched along the way and found that nothing strange had happened to the vast godly sect. Everything was normal and there didn't seem to be any changes, nor were there any attacks. That's not the main point. What's the main point? Isn't the vast divine sect under attack? Itanyun asked curiously. No, that's not it at all. It's the heavenly cultivation god realm that's fighting. Sword C Heavenly Venerable and the others said anxiously, I don't know why, but suddenly, 2 great god realms started attacking the cultivation god realm. In addition, there were many internal rebellions, and it immediately exploded. What? Itanyun was taken aback. Could it be the myriad heavens divine domain and the sacred peak divine domain? How did you know? Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the rest were stunned. How did the news spread so quickly? Or rather, you were nearby, but we didn't sense your presence at all. I previously knew that the heavenly cultivation god realm's elders colluded with other god realms and wanted them to support them. Itanyun said coldly, those 2 god realms are the myriad heavens divine domain and the sacred peak divine domain. They can be considered old rivals. These 2 forces were indeed old rivals, and very old rivals at that. They had been entangled since the outer god realms until now. He had always wanted to destroy these 2 forces, but he didn't have the time, and his cultivation wasn't strong enough. Since the 2 god realms could gain a foothold here, they definitely had their own extraordinary side. If they casually attacked, it would be easy for problems to arise. But now, the 2 god realms actually made a move so quickly, and they didn't know why. You even know this? Sword C Heavenly Venerable and the others were stunned. They were the only ones who didn't know. Yes, I found this information in the mind of one of the Heavenly Cultivation God Realm's elders. I asked the Heavenly Cultivation God Realm's Lord to investigate, and then it became like this. Could the investigation be the fuse? The information in Itanyun's mind spun rapidly, and after a moment, his eyes revealed shock. Could it be that the evil spirit race made a move? Thinking about it carefully, the sacred peak divine domain had something to do with the evil spirit race. It was possible that the 5th grade god realm had asked the sacred peak divine domain to attack the heavenly cultivation god realm, and for some reason, they pulled in the myriad heavens divine domain. The evil spirit race made a move? Could it be that there is an evil spirit race stationed in the myriad heavens divine domain? Sword C Heavenly Venerable and the others had just heard about it recently, and the information was gradually spreading. It was just that most of them hadn't seen it before, so no one knew whether it was true or not. That's what I mean. Then what do we do now? Do we go over to support them? Itanyun asked. Of course, Master and the others were besieged by a group of elders and experts from the outer god realms. Many geniuses chose to rebel, but those with low cultivations all chose to stand on Master's side. There are many of them, but their cultivations are all relatively low. Sword C Heavenly Venerable smiled bitterly. Looks like we have something to do with this matter? It's a little related, but that's because Master stole their benefits. How could they not be angry and rebel? They wanted to grasp great power in the first place. I suspect that it's related to the evil spirit race, and they gradually want to take these divine domains for themselves. The more Itanyun thought about it, the more he felt afraid. The evil spirit race's infiltration was extremely shocking. Not only the evil spirit race, but the other races in the Battle of the God Emperor were also constantly expanding their forces. They wanted to completely turn things around one day and become the true masters of the inner god realm. We are disrupting their plans in advance. Otherwise, when they completely grasp great power, the heavenly cultivation god realm will be finished. Itanyun said in a deep voice. It seems that from the beginning, the heavenly cultivation god realm has been extremely chaotic, and its roots have long since decayed to a terrifying extent. When Master returns, forget about reforming it. There's a bunch of traitors here. How can we reform it? Then there's no time to lose. Let's hurry over and support Master now. Maybe we won't be of much use, but we can help a little, just a little. Sword C Heavenly Venerable and the others' cultivation was not weak, but facing a heavenly god, they were really cannon fodder. However, it was impossible for them to watch their master be besieged, and it was the same for Yi Tianyun. Chapter 1569. After making some preparations, Yi Tianyun and the others immediately headed to the Heaven Cultivation God realm, discussing countermeasures along the way. However, how to deal with it depended on the situation there. Flying at full speed, they quickly arrived at the Heaven Cultivation God realm. Just as they arrived outside the passageway, they saw a group of powerhouses guarding outside, all at the level of middle heavenly venerables and above. All of them stared at this side, and whoever dared to barge in would be killed without mercy. They aren't disciples of the Heaven Cultivation God realm, but disciples of other God realms. The passageway was so easily controlled. It seems that there are many traitors. When Sword Ruler and the others saw that the passageways were controlled by other disciples, they knew that there were many traitors. If there weren't many traitors, it would be very easy to know that someone had barged in. If a large number of powerhouses came, they would immediately notify the elders to come and support, or immediately close the passageway, which could stop the invasion of strong enemies. Now that they had completely fallen, it meant that there were many traitors. It seems that the Heaven Cultivation God realm is really hard to say this time. Yi Tianyun shook his head. No wonder Master didn't let us join. If we joined and something happened, we would definitely be in trouble. Yi Tianyun only now knew that the great Devis probably knew a lot of things, which was why he didn't let them join. Right? It seems that we can only barge in, otherwise we won't be able to enter at all. Sword Ruler and the others took out their weapons, preparing for battle. Yi Tianyun's weapon was a low heavenly venerable spirit treasure. In fact, with his cultivation, he could already make a middle heavenly venerable spirit treasure, but he didn't have the time to do so. If we barge in, we will alert the enemy and let the cultivators inside know that we went in. Yi Tianyun signaled for them to stop and not rush in. But if we don't barge in, how do we go in? It seems that the inside is surrounded, or the exit is blocked. It's not possible to come out. Sword Ruler said with a stern expression, although it won't fall so quickly, the situation is definitely not good, especially with the exit blocked. Yi Tianyun nodded, agreeing with Heavenly Venerable Sword C's words. The great Devis and the others would definitely not be defeated so quickly. No matter what, they had a large number of loyal elders by their side. Even if they were a little less than the celestial realms that were besieging them, there were still quite a number of heavenly gods among them. If they could easily fall into the enemy's hands, then they would be too weak. No matter what, they would be able to hold on for a period of time. It's very simple. In the past, I really couldn't do this, but now it's different. Yi Tianyun smiled and gestured for them to grab him. He then took a step forward and dragged his 4 senior brothers and the rest into the rift. After entering the void, everything was the same as usual. He could still see the scenery outside from the void. Previously, when its grade was still low, it was impossible for it to casually bring in people. Now, however, it was different. After its grade had risen significantly, it could bring in 4 people at once. After bringing them in, Yi Tianyun swaggered over with them. Under their shocked gazes, they easily passed through the passage and entered the Heaven Cultivation celestial realm. After gradually going far away, they found a remote corner, and Yi Tianyun brought them out. Huff! After dragging them out, Yi Tianyun let out a deep breath. Bringing 4 people into the void in one go consumed a lot of energy. More than half of his energy was depleted in an instant. However, he immediately swallowed a medicinal pill and quickly recovered the portion that was consumed. Little junior brother, you're too amazing. You walked in so easily. It's like you're in your own backyard. Heavenly Venerable Sword C and the others were stunned. After entering, those guards didn't notice them, and they swaggered past in front of them. If it was a sneak attack, they would have been decapitated long ago. With a slight improvement in ability, this effect can be achieved. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, however, the consumption is really great. Now is not the time to praise me. Let's hurry over. Alright. They didn't say much. Their main goal now was to see the situation of the great Devis. Then, They concealed their auras and quietly flew forward. Along the way, they discovered that the situation of many planets was rather bad, and they were all controlled by a group of experts. These experts were from the myriad heaven divine realm, the sacred peak divine realm, and the evil spirit race. That's right, the experts of the three great powers had all come. How could they not be suppressed? This evil spirit race is really bold. Are they really not afraid of those hidden existences? Tianyun knew what the hidden existences that the heavenly cultivation domain lord was talking about were. They were the ancient experts from a long time ago. The ancient experts had survived the battle of the divine lord. Some of them had a blood feud with the evil spirit race, while others were hiding. When they saw something, they would come out of seclusion to suppress it. No matter what kind of thoughts they had, they all hated the evil spirit race very much. But the evil spirit race was just that bold. They were really unbridled and attacked here. They weren't even afraid of the foundation of the heaven cultivation divine realm. There must be powerful existences in the heaven cultivation divine realm. It was impossible for there to be only a small number of experts here. The evil spirit race isn't just bold, they are simply audacious. Heavenly Sovereign Jian Si said sternly, "It seems like they are very confident. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to do this." Yes, but it seems like their main goal is to control all the forces and completely occupy the heaven cultivation divine realm. Heavenly Sovereign Yu Qian said, "The cultivators in these controlled planets weren't considered powerful. They were only around the Earth monarch level, and the strongest was only the Lord of Heaven. As long as a few heavenly sovereigns were sent down, it would be enough to suppress them and make them not dare to act rashly. If they made a slight move, they would be easily killed." In the face of powerful cultivation, a large number of people was a pile of trash. They were expressionless as they watched from the side. There was no need to send too many heavenly sovereigns to guard a planet, only 2 were enough. "Little junior brother, what do you think we should do now?" Heavenly Sovereign Jian Si pointed at them and said. Right now, they were all centered around Tianyun, mainly because Tianyun was more capable and had brought them in easily. Unknowingly, they all wanted to ask Tianyun about his plan. Is there a need to say that? Get rid of them one by one, don't leave a single one alive. Tianyun's gaze was ice cold. He definitely wouldn't show any mercy when dealing with these enemies. If he could kill them, he definitely wouldn't let them go. "We nurtured you like this, but you treat us like this." One of the elders roared angrily. "Nurture us? That's your business, it has nothing to do with us." One of the elders pointed at the great Devis and sneered, "But it was supposed to be fine. I didn't expect you to come back and cause trouble, otherwise, we would definitely be able to rise step by step, and finally become the candidate for the heavenly cultivation domain lord. In this place, it was either the great elder or the next domain master. Everything depended on one's contributions and prestige. But the most important thing is that you provoked the Lord." They all sneered, then moved to the side to make space. Immediately, a familiar figure slowly walked over from behind. It was the familiar person from before, Heavenly God Avalon. Heavenly God Avalon slowly walked over and said with a smile, "I already said that the heavenly cultivation domain would slowly kill you. But now, I don't intend to do it slowly. I'll directly kill you. Or rather, I'll directly turn the heavenly cultivation domain into my divine domain. Also, you said before that I'm not afraid of those hidden old farts. To be honest, I'm not afraid at all. If you have the ability, come out. I suspect that they won't come out. They're all dead." He laughed out loud, completely ignoring those ancient existences. "Is that so? I don't think so. I think that group of people will soon reappear, and when that time comes, they'll massacre everything." Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord said coldly. Heavenly God Avalon's eyes narrowed. After calming down a little, he continued to mock them. "Of course, the key is that your old farts have all been sealed by us. You don't have anything to rely on anymore. How can you make a comeback? Don't count on those old farts. You can't even protect yourselves, So what else can you save? The heavenly cultivation domain's patriarchs were all sealed. The patriarchs were all in seclusion. They only needed to use a little trick to seal the perimeter. In fact, this great formation definitely couldn't trap them, but they were all in seclusion. As long as they surrounded the perimeter and didn't let anyone leak information, then these patriarchs would be no different from being trapped to death. By the time these patriarchs reacted, the outside had already been completely occupied. There was no point in coming out. Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord and the others were silent. Some of their eyes burned with anger, but there was nothing they could do. They were all trapped, so there was no way to ask for help. Sigh, if Father was a little more ruthless, perhaps this situation wouldn't have happened. Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord called himself Father, which meant that he was using his status as a father to talk to the great Devis. From his tone, one could hear the guilt in it. If he had killed them or captured them, then this situation wouldn't have happened. But there were no ifs. Things had already happened. By the time he investigated, the other party had already carried out the plan. Father, there's no need to feel guilty about this. You've always prioritized the bigger picture, and you're even more helpless. I've really learned a lot over the past few days. The boundless sky god sighed deeply. After a thorough investigation, he realized that his father was just putting up a front. Previously, he seemed to oppose him and treat him badly. Everything was to protect him, and he also wanted his son to change the heavenly cultivation domain. After all, the heavenly cultivation domain lord's authority wasn't low, but it wasn't absolute. If he wanted to change everything, it would depend on whether the great Devis could play a role. However, the heavenly cultivation domain had already decayed. By the time it was fixed, it was already too late. While sighing, Itianyun was hiding in a corner. He was alone. The rest of the senior brothers went to the planets one by one and killed the traitors. Everything was done quietly. Those patriarchs are all trapped? Then let's go and free them. The situation will be reversed soon. Itianyun's eyes narrowed. Chapter 1571. While they were still in a stalemate, Itianyun quickly turned to the patriarch's area. He had never been to this area before, but he could roughly tell from its appearance. How could the patriarch's seclusion place be bad? Of course, it couldn't be bad. It must be an extremely powerful core. After a while, he easily found it. It was simply and crudely sitting on a grade 6 core. The surrounding area was very good. Looking closely, there were heavy guards outside, and there were 2 heavenly god powerhouses. As for the other heavenly venerable powerhouses, there was no need to say much. Sending 2 heavenly gods to guard here was enough to show how important this place was. Itianyun probed a little and immediately determined that this was the area where the patriarch was in seclusion. He especially set up a shielding array around the periphery. In fact, it was to block the energy emitted from the outside, especially the energy from the battle. All of it was blocked outside. This was not a difficult array. It was a very simple and crude shielding array, and its grade was still relatively low. But for the patriarchs in seclusion, it was the most effective array. After all, if the energy of the battle outside was transmitted over, these patriarchs would immediately be startled awake. Therefore, under normal circumstances, there absolutely could not be any fighting around here. Once it happened, it would be extremely severe. These patriarchs could not be mobilized casually. If they found out that they were disturbed, one could imagine how furious they would be. Therefore, a simple shielding array was enough. They would guard here, and whoever appeared nearby would be killed immediately. They were also extremely cautious now, keeping a close eye on the surroundings and not letting anyone come over. Hiding on the side, Itianyun did not think that his power of the void could escape their detection. Heavenly gods were much stronger than heavenly venerables. Previously, those guarding the passageway were all heavenly venerables, so it was naturally easy to hide from them. Now that they were facing heavenly gods, they would probably be discovered as soon as they got close. Hiding in the void, they would still be attacked. Perhaps it would reduce the power a little, but they would still be attacked. Looks like I have to go over with a low profile again. Itianyun smiled slightly. He thought of the idiots he had faced before. Or rather, he had always faced idiots. Now it all depended on his acting skills. Then Eonyun pretended to be flustered as he flew over, his body swaying unsteadily. As soon as he flew over, he was immediately detected by the two great Empyrean gods. The two of them were evil spirit races Empyrean gods, and were even stronger than ordinary Empyrean gods. It's a human cultivator. The two heavenly deities quickly looked over and stared fixedly at Eonyun. They quickly sensed that Eonyun's cultivation base was only that of a middle-level heavenly venerable. From the looks of it, he must have escaped from another planet. Kill him. Without much nonsense, as long as they came close, they would naturally kill without mercy. Immediately, one of the evil spirit heavenly deity rushed toward Eonyun and grabbed the void, and a powerful heavenly deity's power shrouded the area around Eonyun. After sealing off the area, the evil spirit god immediately wanted to kill Eonyun. He didn't even want to wait for him to speak, let alone subdue him. He just wanted to kill him. The mission they had received was very simple. As long as it wasn't one of their own, kill without mercy, no matter who it was. Even if it was a super prodigy from the divine realm or a princess, as long as they came close, they would all be killed. The instant the evil spirit god was about to kill Eonyun's eyes narrowed, and his drifting figure quickly swept over, directly exploding with his strongest power. Boom! The violent power pierced through the evil spirit god. The instant the evil spirit god was torn to pieces, the 5-dragon divine spear quickly swept out, turning into a myriad of divine lights that enveloped the evil spirit god. The title of the evil spirit race assassin was fully displayed here. The damage he dealt was greatly increased. In an instant, the evil spirit god was easily killed, turning into a mist of blood. Ding! Successfully killed the evil spirit god. Obtained 6 million compressed experience points. You have successfully killed the evil spirit god. Obtained an additional 100,000 compressed experience points. The combination of the violent power and the title of the evil spirit god assassin was enough to give him heaven-defying lethality. The evil spirit god assassin could increase his damage, but as the opponent's cultivation level increased, the power would gradually decrease. Although there was a decrease, it didn't decrease by much. From the previous 15 times, the power was reduced to 10 times. This was already very satisfactory to him. What was there to be dissatisfied with to be able to increase his damage by 10 times? Sneak attack. The other heavenly god's eyes widened when he saw his companion being killed in an instant. It looked like a heavenly venerate that was fleeing in a panic had suddenly exploded with such powerful power. He wasn't fleeing in a panic at all. He was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, and he was here to launch a sneak attack. Then, he quickly took out his jade pendant and was about to crush it to send the news that he had been sneak attacked when a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Eonyun's eyes were cold, and he attacked fiercely while his opponent was still sending the message. The divine spear in his hand danced wildly, and each of his attacks was fatal. The violent power once again insta-killed the evil spirit god. The evil spirit god had thought that Eonyun wouldn't arrive so quickly, but now it seemed that he was too naive. He didn't even have time to defend properly before he died. If he hadn't sent the message first and had immediately summoned the heavenly venerate spirit treasure, he might have been able to resist for a while and successfully send the message. Now, he didn't have such a chance, and he had completely turned into cosmic dust. Eonyun didn't stop and continued to kill the other heavenly venerate guards. Only then did they react, but they didn't have the qualifications to send the message. They might be able to send the message, but it wasn't to the main person. Regardless of whether they could send the message or not, Eonyun had already quickly killed his way over. With a wave of saber light and sword shadows, they were all beheaded, allowing Eonyun to harvest a wave of experience points, which made him feel very satisfied. Done! Eonyun's eyes narrowed, and he looked around. Finally, his gaze focused on the planet in front of him. It was time to wake up these old ancestors. The situation was urgent, and he didn't hesitate. He fiercely swung his spear over, and a rainbow-like light condensed into a line that charged straight into the great array in front of him. As long as he destroyed this great array and caused an explosion inside, then all the old ancestors would naturally wake up. He wanted it to be this simple and violent. It would be too late for him to knock on the door and wake them up. How could the old ancestors' seclusion grounds be simple? He couldn't break it even if he wanted to. When this attack was about to hit the great array, a figure came out from inside and patted the attack lightly, dissipating it into a pile of colorful light spots. Yi Tianyun's attack was actually dissipated. Chapter 1572. Yi Tianyun's heart sank when he saw the old man who had suddenly appeared in front of him. He did not expect that there would be another variable at this time. Empyrean God Tower Cloud, Primordial Empyrean God Expert, Mid-Stage Empyrean God. One of the patriarchs who trained in the Empyrean God realm. He has a powerful, primordial bloodline in his veins, and when he explodes with power, he can tear through anything with his claws. His bloodline was the precious bloodline of the Blood Wolf King. It had no weaknesses. The detailed information was analyzed bit by bit. Every piece of information that was analyzed was incomparably terrifying. Most importantly, this was the patriarch of the Heavenly Cultivation God realm. The old ancestor of the Heaven Cultivation God realm came out to block Yi Tianyun's attack and didn't even help. Without a doubt, he was a traitor. I'm indeed not a disciple of the Heavenly God realm. I wonder if I can awaken the other patriarchs and join the rescue? Yi Tianyun's expression was calm. He already knew that the other party was a traitor, but he didn't expect them to hide it so deeply. He hadn't been able to find any memories of Empyrean God Tower Cloud. This could only mean that Empyrean God Monstrous Cloud's urge had hidden himself very well. For him to only appear now, it seemed that his plan really was quite insidious. Overall, there weren't many ancient heavenly gods here, only 5. Empyrean God Tower Cloud was one of the traitors. He naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly. Even if he wanted to subdue the other Empyrean gods, it would be extremely difficult. Moreover, why did he have to subdue the other Empyrean gods? As their companions, if he could say a few words on the side, he would be able to have his senior brothers help him take care of everything, so why not? Little friend, you don't have to worry about this. Just go to hell. If you meddle in other people's business, you will die early. Empyrean God Tower Cloud waved a finger, causing the surrounding Empyrean God's power to completely lock down the area. In terms of both the power of the seal and the speed at which it moved, it vastly outstripped the other Empyrean gods. It could even be said that he was several levels stronger than the Heaven Cultivation Region Lord, who was also an intermediate heavenly god. This was related to his bloodline. The ancient bloodline allowed him to be much stronger than other heavenly gods of the same level. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. The other party attacked without warning and looked at him as if he was looking at a lowly ant. Even though he had killed 2 heavenly gods earlier, he still didn't think they were worthy of his attention. It should be said that any cultivator without an ancient bloodline was a lowly existence in his eyes. This was the arrogance of a bloodline that could override everything. As a matter of fact, he could really reign above everything. He was much stronger than those of the same level. Yi Tianyun was able to tell from a simple scan that he was a level more powerful than even Empyrean God Varen. It was no wonder that they had to seal this place to prevent the old ancestor from coming out. If all 5 old ancestors were to come out, then the experts sent over would be easily suppressed. As for the Myriad Sky Sacred Realm and the Sacred Peak Sacred Realm, their foundations were not as strong, so the experts they sent were not at the ancient era level. In fact, in their headquarters, there were no ancient heavenly gods. At most, there would be 1 or 2. Compared to this place, the difference was too great. Under normal circumstances, ancient-level heavenly gods wouldn't casually come out. They would usually be in secluded cultivation to break through. Having cultivated to this realm, they had already seen too much. They had no more desires and only wanted to charge into the God-Emperor realm. He was not interested in the rest of the power. After all, there were very few existences at their level who could contend against them. As long as they didn't have nothing better to do, they wouldn't die. In the face of the rapidly sealing power, Tianyun merely grinned. Is that so? But compared to the other heavenly gods, you are quite stupid. Empyrean god Tower Cloud faltered. He didn't know what Tianyun was talking about. However, there was one thing he knew for sure. Tianyun was calling him stupid. In the next moment, Tianyun's figure disappeared from the place he was standing, and he directly drilled into the void, and then he slammed into the barrier that sealed the barrier. With a loud boom, the sealing barrier was smashed apart. His body flashed, and he instantly teleported through the void. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. Empyrean god Tower Cloud was stunned. His spiritual sense had actually lost its target. After that, Tianyun appeared outside the barrier formation. He stabbed his spear into the ground, and a surge of energy surged forth, shattering the barrier formation. At the same time, a violent surge of energy surged forth in all directions, including toward the secluded cultivation area up ahead. Empyrean god Tower Cloud finally understood why he had called him stupid. Just like the other two heavenly gods, he had greatly underestimated Tianyun's power. Empyrean god Tower Cloud was using quite a bit of power, but to Tianyun, it was still too weak. As long as he didn't use more than half of his power, it would be useless. There should be no more problems now. Tianyun stared at the surging energy. Even if those ancestors were in secluded cultivation like dead pigs, they should still be able to awaken, right? As the energy surged over, it violently affected the situation in the surroundings. Soon, everything returned to normal, having been absorbed by the surrounding grand formation. The defenses here were freakishly powerful, and his attacks were unable to inflict any damage. His goal was not to destroy this place anyway. All he wanted was to awaken them. Just as he was waiting for these heavenly gods to awaken, he was immediately struck by a sense of peril from behind him. He reflexively hid in space while attempting to use instant teleportation to escape from this place. He didn't even need to turn around to know that Empyrean god Tower Cloud had been enraged and was charging toward him. You want to run? Empyrean god Tower Cloud was completely enraged, and he made a grabbing motion. Sharp claws extended from his hands, which tore through the space around him. The space in front of Tianyun had been torn into many shreds, making it impossible for him to crawl through. At the same time, his claws came crashing down viciously, trying to tear him into countless shreds. A powerful sealing power was also imbued within his claws. Empyrean god Tower Cloud had truly unleashed his power this time, and it was an extremely powerful one at that. A sense of impending doom immediately swept toward him from behind. He couldn't even teleport now, so he could only turn around and defend himself with his 5-dragon divine spear. 5 dragon roars. 5 violent dragons roared through the air, but they were also torn into countless pieces by Empyrean god Tower Cloud's powerful claws. The 5 claws pierced through the 5 massive dragons and through Tianyun's body as if they were slicing through a piece of tofu. After piercing through Tianyun's body, the claws clawed viciously into the ground, upon which a sharp screeching sound erupted. 5 gashes instantly appeared on the hard ground. Tianyun's body was immediately sliced into 5 pieces before crashing into the ground. Instakill. A mere ant dares to act so arrogantly before me? Empyrean god Tower Cloud chuckled coldly. Did he think he was an old man just because he hadn't unleashed his might? Chapter 1573. What's going on? At this time, 2 old ancestors rushed out of the seclusion room. Their aura was very powerful, even stronger than Tao Yun. They quickly flew out and saw the traces of battle around them. There was also a corpse on the ground, which made them frown. What's going on? Did an intruder come in? One of the old ancestors asked. Tao Yun said calmly, It's nothing, it's just some little guys who wanted to disturb our seclusion. I have already dealt with them. Later, I will tell the others to pay more attention to this matter. They must not disturb our seclusion. The 2 old ancestors were startled, but they shook their head and said, You don't have to be so exaggerated, who didn't do something wrong? Tao Yun, you are too irritable, you need to calm down and cultivate properly. Big brother is right, Let's go back to seclusion now. Tao Yun signaled them to go back quickly. Only he knows the situation. The two old ancestors didn't suspect anything, but when they turned around and wanted to go back, a large flame suddenly appeared on the corpse and wrapped it up. In less than a moment, a handsome young man reappeared in front of everyone. Fire rebirth. The ability of Dragon Phoenix Divine Vein appeared again. It perfectly allowed him to be reborn. Although the cooldown time is relatively long, but after leveling up, the cooldown time will be recalculated and it will be greatly reduced. Moreover, Tianyun knows that these are very important, so he will immediately remove the cooldown time, especially in the face of danger. In order to save his life, he will immediately remove the cooldown time. Of course, if he doesn't have Dragon Phoenix Divine Vein, he can still use life to resurrect, but the consumption of Crazy Point is slightly higher. But he can afford to use it now, so there is no problem. Old ancestor, please don't leave. Tianyun came out of the fire and said, Cultivation Heaven Divine Domain was attacked by evil spirit race, and now the main hall is surrounded. If Senior doesn't believe me, you can immediately use your spiritual sense to investigate, and if there is a bit of falsehood, this Junior will let Senior deal with it. Tianyun said a series of words, which made them confused. Especially Tao Yun, he really didn't expect that Tianyun can survive his attack. What kind of ability is this? By the time he reacted, it was already too late. Tianyun had already said everything that he wanted to say. Evil spirit race attacked? The two old ancestors were taken aback, and immediately their expressions became serious. Without any doubt, they immediately investigated. It was not that they trusted Tianyun very much, but they would rather believe it than not. After they probed with their spiritual senses, one of the patriarchs said coldly, It really is the evil spirit race. There are also other experts from the divine realm who have already attacked and surrounded the main hall. Their spiritual senses were extremely astonishing. They could easily cover an area and investigate the situation in the main hall. Naturally, it was not a problem for them. More importantly, no one came to inform us. Instead, an outsider came. They could recognize that Tianyun is an outsider, mainly because he is a human. In the past, the divine realm would not accept a human as a disciple. This is really a kind of discrimination, but things are so cruel. Because your area is covered by a barrier formation, you can't feel the fluctuations outside, so I came to destroy the formation. But before I could destroy it, I was discovered by this old ancestor, who immediately stopped me and didn't let me destroy the formation. I don't need to explain his intentions. Tianyun said coldly. Tianyun didn't explain clearly. The two old ancestors looked over, wanting to see something from their companion's expression. Empyrean God Tao Yun, however, said calmly, That's utter nonsense. I see that you, an outsider disciple, have committed a capital offense by trespassing here. I attacked casually. As for this barrier formation, I will naturally deal with it. In my opinion, you are more likely a disciple sent by another divine realm, and you are the one who set up the formation. Not only did Tao Yun not panic, but he also fiercely attacked Tianyun, refusing to admit that he is the traitor. Is that so? Since you know about this formation, you must have checked the situation outside, right? Why did you ask the seniors to go back into seclusion instead of going to rescue them? Tianyun pointed at him and said coldly, Without a doubt, you are the traitor. And I am indeed not a disciple of the divine realm of cultivation, but I am a disciple of the great Devis. I would never do such a rebellious thing. Tianyun's tone was firm and convincing. This was especially true when it was backed up by evidence. It directly shut up Heavenly God Tao Yun's words, and viciously tore apart Heavenly God Tao Yun's face, tearing apart this hypocritical content. Tao Yun's expression darkened. There was nothing wrong with what he just said. If Tianyun hadn't come back to life, the two ancestors definitely wouldn't have checked the situation outside. Instead, they would have obediently gone back into seclusion. This was the trust between companions, and they definitely wouldn't have checked the situation outside for no reason. Who would have thought that a freak would appear out of nowhere and ruin everything? Tao Yun, your words do make some sense. One of the ancestors stared at his companion and said in a low voice, "Please give us an explanation. Is that true?" They weren't idiots, and they wouldn't easily believe the words of an outsider. However, Yun's words made a lot of sense. Tao Yun didn't know what was going on outside? That was impossible. He definitely knew what was going on outside, and he knew that an outsider had come in, so he would definitely investigate the situation outside. However, Tao Yun didn't investigate, and he even persuaded them to go back into seclusion. This meant that there really was a ghost. Tao Yun's expression was dark and uncertain. He didn't think that all of his efforts would go to waste because of a human brat. Die! Tao Yun roared furiously, and he viciously slapped toward Yi Tianyun, wanting to kill Yi Tianyun again. Yi Tianyun was already prepared, and he had already teleported away at this moment, dodging to the side. Boom! Tao Yun's attack heavily struck the area where Yi Tianyun was, and a loud boom rang out. Tao Yun didn't continue to fight, and he instead flew away, transforming into a beam of light and quickly escaping from this area. He didn't cause any conflict with the other ancestors. However, the two of them didn't chase after him, and they allowed him to escape. "Big brother, aren't we going to chase after him?" the ancestor beside him asked. Chapter 1574. Two of the patriarchs quickly went to wake up the other two patriarchs. All four patriarchs had emerged from seclusion. After learning of Empyrean god Towercloud's betrayal, their faces were strangely calm. They didn't become enraged at all. "The next time we meet, we'll be enemies," they shook their heads. Their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. How could they betray him just like that? Could it be that they had mistreated Empyrean god Towering Cloud? As for what the real answer was, he could only find out in detail the next time they met. The four patriarchs all came to a consensus. The next time they met would be the day of Empyrean god Towercloud's death. They did not allow betrayal. It should be said that no one liked betrayal. Betrayers had to die. Unfortunately, there was a huge problem with the Heaven Cultivation God realm. He had to resolve the situation here first and put everything else aside for the time being. "Little friend, thank you for your help. I won't say much else. After we settle this matter, I'll reward you handsomely." The patriarch in the lead was the one who had been referred to as Big Brother. His name was Heavenly God Yudang. His cultivation was the strongest, and he was at the upper Heavenly God realm. An ancient Heavenly God of the upper Heavenly God level, needless to say, was definitely at a heaven-defying level. However, he didn't try to stop Empyrean god Towercloud. As his old friend, he naturally knew what he was up to. It was true that there was a gap in their cultivation, but it was impossible for them to stop it easily. The most important thing now was to pacify the Heavenly Cultivation God realm. Immediately afterwards, they rushed towards the main palace, preparing to assist Region Lord Xiao Tian and the others. Yi Tianyun also followed along. He couldn't miss this opportunity. The ancient heavenly god is truly terrifying. Yi Tianyun's heart palpitated. That claw just now had instantly killed him. If he didn't have the ability to rise from the ashes, he would have been dead for sure. After being killed, he still had a little bit of consciousness left, so he deliberately did not rush to be reborn. Instead, he observed the situation around him. After those old ancestors came out, they would be reborn. That would be the perfect result. If his consciousness completely disappeared, it would automatically trigger the rebirth effect. To put it bluntly, he was completely dead and had no consciousness at all. Then, the rebirth effect would be automatically triggered. He might not be able to deal with Empyrean God Monstrous Cloud, but what about the other patriarchs? This meant that he couldn't use force, he could only use his wits. At the same time, the battle in the main hall was already in full swing, reaching its climax. They had already begun to fight. The battle was in a stalemate, and no one could easily defeat the other. Quite powerful. After exchanging blows with Domain Lord Heavensoar, Empyrean God Varen quickly retreated. Faced with Domain Lord Heavensoar's attacks, he cut quite a sorry figure. At this moment, there were many tokens in his hand. He looked at them coldly and said, As long as I crush these tokens, my subordinates will immediately take action. When that happens, your other planets will immediately be wiped out indiscriminately. Their faces instantly changed. They didn't feel that Empyrean god Avalon was lying. It was the truth. They were all trapped here, and it was normal for the other planets to be controlled. What do you want to do? The Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord's face was gloomy. If he really did that, then his Heavenly Cultivation Domain would suffer a great loss. The other disciples were quite talented, and with a little nurturing, they could become decent pillars of support. If they lost the most basic disciple in the divine realm, how would they develop? Therefore, their hearts tightened. This guy was really too despicable. What do I want to do? Empyrean god Avalon sneered. It's very simple. Just kill yourself and I won't do anything. Are you joking? The great Devis said coldly, if we kill ourselves, then you won't do anything? Don't treat us like fools. Do it if you want to. They weren't that great to ask them to kill themselves. Especially after they died, could they guarantee that they wouldn't do anything? Perhaps they wouldn't be killed, but it was no different from being a slave. Especially if they all died, what did it have to do with him if the others died? It wasn't that they were selfish, but if they died, the Heavenly Cultivation Domain would no longer be the Heavenly Cultivation Domain. Empyrean god Avalon's face was ugly. He didn't expect the great Devis to answer so decisively. He immediately pointed at him and said, then I'll change my condition. As long as you kill yourself, I'll let 5 planets go. How about that? Empyrean god Avalon immediately turned against the great Devis. He wanted to see the great Devis die. The Heavenly Cultivation Domain Lord's face became even uglier. He took a step forward and said coldly, don't talk so much nonsense. If you want to fight, then fight. If you want to crush it, then crush it. I'll make you wish you were dead. He absolutely couldn't let his son die. Even if everyone added up, they wouldn't be as good as his son. It seems like you're really ruthless. In that case, why don't you destroy a few planets first to play? The jade pendant in Empyrean god Avalon's hand was about to be crushed at any time. Once it was crushed, his subordinates would immediately attack. Then crush it all you want. Let's see if your subordinates have any reaction. At this time, Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others appeared on the side. You guys? When the great Devis saw his disciples appear, he felt touched. He didn't expect them to appear at this critical moment. Master, don't worry. Those trash have been cleaned up by us. All areas are very safe. Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others smiled. It seemed like their decision was correct. Otherwise, they would have been threatened and could only watch as piles of lives disappeared. Very good. You guys have done well. The great Devis was very satisfied. He didn't expect Heavenly Paragon Sword Ruler and the others to give him such a big surprise. This way, they wouldn't be able to attack the disciples of the Heavenly Cultivation Domain. I don't believe it. Empyrean god Avalon didn't believe it. He crushed the jade pendant in his hand, turning it into a pile of powder that drifted away. The jade pendant was crushed, but there were no signs of fighting on the other planets. It was still the same as usual. This meant that all his subordinates had been killed, and not a single one was left. Now he had to believe that the subordinates he arranged in the other planets had all been killed. Damn it, I didn't expect there to be such a loophole. Empyrean god Avalon gritted his teeth and said, in that case, let's see who can survive until the end. He stretched out his hand and signaled everyone to move out. He wanted to threaten them. Since threats didn't work, he could only use force. Kill! Empyrean god Avalon led the charge, and the other Empyrean gods followed. Now that they were all tied together, if they didn't destroy the Heavenly Cultivation Domain, it would be their god domains that were destroyed. Chapter 1575. The battle began once again, and the two sides began to fight. All of them used their full strength, and every move was fatal. If they could kill in one move, they definitely wouldn't use two. Although Heavenly God Wallen had the support of 2 divine domains and the evil spirit race, it was not that easy to take down the Xiutian region lord. However, To heavenly god Wallen, as long as he could take down this place, no matter how many sacrifices he had, it would be considered a victory. The Xiutian region lord's side had always been in a passive state and had always been suppressed. They could only forcefully resist. Especially when facing those traitors, they were both furious and heartbroken. Former companions or former comrades had become enemies just like that. One could imagine how they felt. Some of them were soft-hearted and couldn't attack their companions, but the other party didn't hesitate to slash at them. This was the difference. From the very beginning, they had been ruthless and had no intention of integrating into this place. Their mission in here was very simple, which was to integrate into this place. When they were needed one day, they would fight back. It was that simple. Gradually, after some sacrifices, many people came to their senses. Their former companions were no longer their companions, but their enemies. Kill! They pounced forward crazily and attacked fiercely. Anger and sorrow interweaved together, completely turning into battle power to vent. The Xiutian region lord and the others were also in a bad mood. Facing their own elders, this kind of feeling was too disappointing. Xiutian region lord, give up struggling. If this continues, you will die without a doubt. From the very beginning, you have lost for sure. That's right, your current strength is far inferior to ours. As long as you're not blind, you can see it. I advise you to obediently give up struggling. This way, you still have a chance to live. Since we've been together for so many years, give up struggling. This is good for you. The true king is not you, but the evil spirit race. They had all been completely brainwashed. It should be said that they had already chosen to join the evil spirit race. Those who betrayed them did not join the evil spirit race, but they would follow the lead of the evil spirit race. To put it bluntly, it was a puppet force. However, they were willing to do so. They wanted to obtain more power and more opportunities. After encountering the evil spirit race, they hit it off and immediately knew what to do. Perhaps it could be said that a wise man submits to circumstances. The battle between the divine emperors would definitely descend again, so they had already chosen their side. It was impossible to persuade Domain Lord Xiutian and the others to side with the evil spirit race. Since that was the case, they might as well betray him completely for his own sake. It was difficult for them to defeat the Xiutian region lord, but it was only a matter of time. More than half of the elders and geniuses had betrayed them, and the other party had even sent reinforcements. How could they possibly win? Surrender? This was impossible. I'd rather drag all of you down with me than surrender. The heaven cultivation god Realm held a long sword in his hand and looked at them coldly, his killing intent surging. This is the dignity of the heaven cultivation god Realm. I would rather die standing than live kneeling. I would rather die standing than live kneeling. Everyone roared angrily, their morale soaring. Even if they were to die, they would fight with all their might. They were not willing to admit defeat. In a situation where they were outnumbered, their morale did not drop. Instead, it rose. With Region Lord Xiutian leading the way, their morale naturally rose. They really overestimate themselves. Annihilate them. Avalon was extremely disdainful. Even if they fought back, they were nothing more than a bunch of trash. Following that, they continued to fight. However, after their morale soared, they could really fight back for a while. Even if they were outnumbered, they could still severely injure their opponents. If they could drag one down with them, they would drag one down with them. When their battle reached its climax, a terrifying power descended from the void and enveloped a group of cultivators. Destroy. Boom boom boom. Groups of cultivators directly exploded, turning into clouds of blood mist. They looked extremely miserable. These were all heavenly venerables or divine lords. All of them died, directly exploding into clouds of blood mist. As for those heavenly gods, they all felt immense pressure. They all raised their heads and looked up in shock. They discovered that 4 figures had descended in the void and were constantly forming hand seals to envelop the area, destroying a group of invaders. The patriarch is here. The eyes of Xiutian region lord and the others lit up. They had originally thought that this would be a battle to the death. Now that the patriarch had appeared, they would definitely win this battle. There were no ancient heavenly gods among their opponents. At most, there was heavenly god Avalon. The rest could not be considered ancient heavenly gods. 4 ancient heavenly gods against 1 ancient heavenly god. The result could be imagined. How could this be? When heavenly god Avalon saw the 4 heavenly gods appear, his face darkened. Logically speaking, this should not have happened. There was a traitor among them. How could this still happen? Then he turned and ran, not even intending to stop. He directly abandoned his subordinates and the cultivators of the 2 great factions. He ran as soon as he said he would. There was no room for negotiation. Heavenly god Avalon was not a fool. When he saw the 4 patriarchs coming, there was no need to say anything. They would definitely lose. Unless they had ancient heavenly gods descend to fight against the 4 patriarchs. But they did not have that many ancient heavenly gods. Even if the ancient heavenly gods of the 2 great factions came, they would not be able to fight against them. There were too few of them. How could they compete? Generally speaking, ancient heavenly gods would stay in their own factions and rarely go out. Only in their own factions could they display their strongest strength. Therefore, they would not leave. The key was that they did not expect that there would be a flaw in their plan. How could they not win if they worked together? Unfortunately, Tianyun ruined their plan. Heavenly god Torrent Cloud's plan to have a traitor fall through, and the 4 patriarchs were released. According to the normal plan, they would take over the entire Heaven Cultivation God realm and finally change owners. When the time came, they would cause some trouble, such as saying that Heaven Cultivation God realm lord was killed and another elder became the Heaven Cultivation God realm lord. In this way, the Heaven Cultivation God realm would not only belong to them, but also to the 4 patriarchs. That guy still wants to escape. Heaven Cultivation God realm lord quickly chased after him. This time, he did not want heavenly god Avalon to escape. He was already relieved. With the patriarchs here, there was no need to worry. From their horrified expressions, it was obvious what the result would be. Master, are you okay? Tianyun floated over and landed next to the Great Devis. The patriarchs were released because of you, right? The Great Devis said with a smile. Is there a need to ask? It must be little junior brother's credit. Heavenly Paragon Sword C laughed loudly. Before coming, he asked us to save them. He must be saving them himself. Chapter 1576. The appearance of the 4 patriarchs immediately eased the burden on his heart. At least there was no danger. The 4 patriarchs joined forces to kill the evil spirit race and then capture the traitors. The traitors were not killed directly. Instead, they were captured first and then executed one by one in front of all the disciples. While they were killing the evil spirit race or the myriad heaven divine realm cultivators, Tianyun also rushed over frantically. Under the lock of the 4 patriarchs, they could not escape and were trapped inside. In this way, it was like a cornered beast that could be easily killed. Especially under the suppression, their strength was greatly suppressed, and they basically had no power to resist. Tianyun quickly activated all kinds of experience cards and followed up with a slaughter, which stunned the sword judge Heavenly Venerable and the others. Little junior brother is a belligerent. No, the myriad heaven divine realm and the sacred peak divine realm have always been against little junior brother. Little junior brother is venting. Let's go and help. Let's get rid of all these guys. All of them thought that Tianyun wanted revenge, and his real goal was to earn experience. With so many cultivators here, it was better to be killed by him than to be killed by the 4 patriarchs. This way, he could obtain experience, so he absolutely could not waste it. When the 4 patriarchs saw Tianyun rush in, they were stunned. Generally speaking, it was enough for them to attack, and their killing speed was faster than Tianyun's, so there was no need for them to join in. But since they had already entered, they could not attack Tianyun, right? They could only slow down their killing speed. These experience points are all mine, all mine. Tianyun swept all the way. He was not willing to let his experience points be stolen. He had originally come to earn experience points. If they were all taken away, then what was the point of coming here? Soon as he swept through, a lot of experience points fell into his bag, and many Empyrean spirit treasures and the like dropped. These were all valuable things, so he naturally could not miss them. The more of these things, the better. In the future, they could be used to fuse and upgrade treasures, so they definitely couldn't be wasted. He saw his senior brothers helping to clean up the mess. They even shouted, "Little junior brother, I'm here to help you." This caused him to shake his head and smile bitterly. He couldn't wait to kill them all. With so many people joining in, how could he earn anything? Very quickly, the invaders were all cleaned up. The remaining ones were all traitors, and they were all captured. Even the elders were trapped in there. In the face of an ancestor-level existence, they did not have any strength to struggle at all and were easily captured. When a large group of traitors were captured, their faces were ashen. They all knew what the final outcome was, and that was death. Apart from that, there was no other choice. What the Heaven Cultivation God realm hated the most was betrayal. As long as it was a traitor, they would die without a doubt. Little junior brother, these two forces really provoked you, letting you kill so ruthlessly. Sword Ruler Heavenly Venerable patted his chest and said, "But we also killed very ruthlessly, we helped you take revenge." Tears immediately streamed down Yi Tianyun's face. He could only nod to express his gratitude. In reality, he was very bitter in his heart. It was because of their participation that he earned a lot less experience. He couldn't say that he wanted to earn experience and let them kill for him, right? After stopping, they did not have the slightest bit of joy to speak of. All of them had stern faces. Facing so many traitors, even if they won, there was nothing to be happy about. They would only feel a kind of sorrow. Where's Ancestor Torrential Cloud? Heaven Cultivation Region Lord glanced and found that Heavenly God Torrential Cloud was not there, and felt very strange. Usually, 5 ancestors would appear at the same time, but there were only 4 ancestors now. Heavenly God Torrential Cloud is also a traitor. Heavenly God Yulong, who was in the lead, sighed deeply. Hearing such explosive news, all of them were stunned. Even the ancestors had traitors. What kind of demonic power was there to make them do such a rebellious thing? After finding out, they did not curse out loud. There was only a kind of sorrow in their hearts. Why did you do this? What conditions did the evil spirit race offer to make you do such a rebellious thing? Heavenly God Yulong turned to look at the traitorous elders. The battle of the God Emperors is about to begin. We are doing this for the good of the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm. If the Heaven Cultivation Celestial Realm wants to survive, we must submit to them. One of the elders said in a deep voice, "However, the winner takes all. You can do whatever you want with us. We have nothing to say." The battle of the God Emperors is about to begin. The eyes of the ancestors focused. They were not surprised at all. The battle of the God Emperors would begin again sooner or later. As long as no God Emperors appeared, it would begin again. In particular, the main culprits of the battle of the God Emperors had not died yet. How could they give up? No one would give up, especially the heavenly gods who stood at the peak. The God Emperors were their ultimate goal. In order to break through, they would sacrifice everything. Because becoming a God Emperor was an invincible existence. It was said that they could control all life. Whoever they wanted to kill would die, and whoever they wanted to live would live. This meant that death in battle was not scary. As long as one became a God Emperor, no matter how many casualties there were, they could be resurrected in the blink of an eye. No one knew whether it was so magical or not. They only knew that the peak cultivation here was the God Emperor. In this celestial realm, there was only one God Emperor. There would not be a second God Emperor. This God Emperor was the God who ruled over everything. Fan Yu, the true God Emperors of the outer celestial realm and the inner celestial realm, were omnipotent. Yi Tianyun listened quietly at the side. He did not expect that this fierce battle was about to begin again. From the memories of the pile of statues, he had been there himself, and knew how terrifying the battle had been. It seemed that when the time came, people would be plunged into misery and suffering again. Countless forces would be annihilated, and everything would be reduced to ruins. What a joke! I didn't expect that there would still be people who believed the lies from back then. Heavenly God Yupong said bitterly, back then, the evil spirit race also said the same thing to the other forces. What was the result in the end? They were either cannon fodder or killed by themselves. Everything was just a tool for them to kill people with a borrowed knife. Do you really expect them to give you anything? The ancestors had seen many things. These people did not know the situation at that time, but they still believed these evil spirit race. They were simply kicked in the head. No, this time they will really give us benefits. They will give us a chance to break through to the God Emperor realm. There is definitely not only one God Emperor, but many. Moreover, they can even break through to the 10th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm. As long as we control the heavenly cultivation celestial realm and become their force, they will teach us. These elders knew that they were doomed. They might as well confess everything so that they could know their good intentions. Chapter 1577. When Yi Tianyun heard the cultivation method of the 10 refinements Earth Lord, his expression became extremely strange. Wasn't he himself a 10 refinements Earth Lord? Was there a need to go through so much trouble to betray and obtain this cultivation method? Not to mention him, even Heavenly Lord Sword C and the others had strange expressions on their faces. They subconsciously looked at Yi Tianyun, feeling that this was an extremely laughable matter. So far, the first 10 refinement Earth Lord that had appeared was undoubtedly Yi Tianyun. As for the evil spirit race, they did not believe that a 10 refinement Earth Lord would appear. This was something that Yi Tianyun was certain of. Up until now, there definitely wasn't a 10th refinement Earth Monarch alive. Perhaps in the future, at least not now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a special title. It was because he was the number 1 earthly monarch that he could have such a title. However, it was hard to say. The evil spirit race had the method to cultivate the 10 refinements of the Earth Lord. But so what? Tianyun knew about it. If he went to negotiate with them, wouldn't he be able to make them betray him? Of course, they had an additional condition, and that was to break through to the God Emperor realm. The 10 refinements Earth Monarch cultivation method was merely something they wanted in passing. The method to break through to the God Emperor realm was the most important. Their words gave them a little shock. Could the explanation that had been spread throughout the entire divine realm be false? In other words, there could only be one God Emperor and not a second one. But the evil spirit race told them that a second one could appear? This was simply a joke. The evil spirit race, which had never even produced a single divine lord, actually dared to boast that they could produce a second divine lord. So what if that's the case? You're willing to betray your sect and deceive your master for such a small thing? The cultivation heaven domain lord said coldly, besides, do you really think they will give you the real cultivation method? You've all been elders here for so many years. Why are you regressing? The cultivation heaven domain lord was truly enraged. He had chosen to betray them just for such an insignificant matter. How laughable. Domain Lord Xiutian, this is a matter of perspective. We don't regret our betrayal. As a member of this place, before you die, we will give you a little more information. The elder said in a serious tone, 2 divine lords have already appeared in the evil spirit race. It's just that they haven't come out of seclusion yet. Bullshit. Empyrean God Yudong couldn't help but curse. God Emperors aren't easy to come by. There is only one God Emperor in the world. If a God Emperor really appeared, with their personalities, they would definitely come out to rule everything. This was obviously unbelievable. God Emperors were already invincible existences, and there were 2 of them. Wasn't this a joke? Let's face it. We've all seen and felt it for ourselves. That terrifying aura is something that only a God Emperor can possess. It's just that the God Emperor didn't come out of seclusion. Instead, he's trapped. As for how he came out, we don't know. All we know is that his aura isn't something we can compare with. Do you really think that we're stupid? We haven't seen anything yet, so we've made up our minds? We're not that stupid. These elders snorted coldly. They looked like they were doing it for their own good, but they were heartlessly abandoned. It was truly chilling. For example, the existence that appeared earlier with the 10 refinements Earthlord was undoubtedly the work of the evil spirit race. They sent people out to stir up trouble, causing the entire divine realm to explode. You should have heard of this. These elders spoke with faces full of pride, wanting to say how correct their choice was. Even though they had been caught, they still wanted to say that their choice was the right one. At this point, the expressions of Yi Tianyun and the others became even weirder, especially Yi Tianyun, who was even more stunned. When did he become the evil spirit race's subordinate? It seems like the evil spirit race's scourge is not clear to all of you. The great Devis shook his head. Whether the matter regarding the Divine Lord is true or not, it's not easy for us to explain. But in the matter that followed, you were indeed fooled by the evil spirit race, and you were completely fooled. How is this possible? They can all release the aura of the 10 refinements Earthlord, and it feels very similar. As long as we obtain that cultivation method, a large number of experts will definitely appear in the heavenly cultivation divine realm. The 10 refinements Earthlord is the ultimate goal, and only then will it be easy to break through to the heavenly God realm, or even the divine Lord realm. They did not believe the words of the great Devis, and still firmly believed that what they had seen and heard was correct. That's right, from your tone, it seems like the great Devis knows a little more. If you have the ability, then tell me what the real cultivation method is, or how to prove that it is not a lie from the evil spirit race. These elders looked at the great Devis with sorrowful eyes and said, "Looks like you haven't made any progress even after training outside for so many years. It is because of this that we are unwilling to hand over the heavenly cultivation divine realm to you. But we hate it. In the end, we still lost." Their faces were filled with unwillingness. No matter what they said, they would not be able to escape death. There was no such thing as a good betrayal or a bad betrayal. Betrayal was betrayal, and the people here had almost been plunged into misery and suffering. Of course I have the cultivation method. The great Devis stood up, looked around, and said, "I'm not afraid to tell you that the cultivation method is to condense 2 planets before the 9 refinements Earthlord. Only then will you have the chance to break through to the 10 refinements Earthlord." They suddenly laughed out loud. As expected of an idiot. These are all nonsense spread by the evil spirit race to deceive you idiots and make you go berserk. I thought you would say something, but it turns out to be something that has been spread all over the streets. They spat and felt that the great Devis was even more ridiculous. The great Devis's expression was indifferent. He knew that they did not believe him. Just as he was about to say something, Eonyun stood up and said, "I like to slap people in the face the most, and I like to slap them heavily." The group of people's gazes focused on Yi Tianyun, not knowing what he meant. When so many elders were talking, a junior actually stood up and interrupted them. As soon as he finished speaking, Eonyun directly unleashed the effect of the 10 refinements Earthlord. Chains appeared behind him, and there were a total of 10 chains, representing the 10 refinements Earthlord. The terrifying aura of the 10 refinements Earthlord enveloped them. Other than the great Devis and the others, most of them were stunned when they saw it. The 10 refinements Earthlord, it really was the 10 refinements Earthlord. What happened to the evil spirit race's exclusive? What happened to the people sent by the evil spirit race to cause trouble? The original was right in front of them, and he was even the direct disciple of the boundless deity. This was like seeing a ghost. Chapter 1578. Yi Tianyun's outburst made them dumbfounded, and they couldn't say a word. This wasn't just a slap in the face, it was simply a slap to the death, ruthlessly shattering their illusions. The real cultivation method is indeed to condense 2 planets before the 9th refinement Earthlord to successfully break through to the 10th refinement Earthlord. The difficulty is too high, it's not recommended to try. It doesn't mean that you can break through after condensing 2 planets. It just increases the chances a little. Yi Tianyun pointed at the great Devis and said, "I have already given the detailed experience to Master, everything will be decided by him." The great Devis definitely wouldn't say it out loud. Originally, he wanted to refute a few words, but Lee Tianyun directly stood up and explained. Otherwise, they wouldn't be willing to believe it no matter what. At the same time, he wanted to increase the prestige of the great Devis, so that after this stop, he could firmly take root in the heaven cultivation god realm. Previously, the great Devis only wanted to try in the vast divine sect. Now that there was such a big change, once he could control most of the power in the heaven cultivation god realm, he could try here. He just wanted to be a boost here, not expose himself to prove that they were idiots. This was only one of the points. The key was to make his master's position more stable. Especially the last words, it meant that the detailed cultivation method was in the hands of the great Devis. As to how to say it out, it was up to the great Devis. The eyes of the group focused on the great Devis, flickering incessantly. They didn't expect that the 10th refinement Earth Lord powerhouse in the outside world was actually the disciple of the great Devis. It was really inconceivable. How can that be? Could it be that what those guys provided us was fake? These elders were all stunned. They had personally experienced it. How could it be fake? As long as one is strong enough, and some have the ability to imitate, it's not surprising to be able to imitate the aura of the 10th refinement Earth Lord. At this time, Yudong stepped out and shook his head, sighing. 10 refinements Earth monarchs. A long time ago, there were indeed 10 refinements Earth monarchs, but they all disappeared. We also have the ability to condense 2 planets, but we don't have the guts to break through to the 10th refinement. The cultivation method is too complicated, it's really hard to say. As ancient heavenly gods, they still knew quite a bit. However, in essence, they did not break through from the 10 refinements Earth monarch. Thus, they really did not have the true cultivation method or the reliable experience. Otherwise, they would have provided it long ago instead of being in seclusion. So there's such a thing. Combined with Lee Tianyun's words, it seemed to be quite believable. Of course, the ability of the 10 refinements Earth monarch was right in front of their eyes. They had no choice but to believe it. Could it be that what we saw was an illusion? These elders really wanted to die. The real 10 refinement Earth Lord was right in front of them. Without a doubt, the evil spirit race was just an illusion. That's right. What you've seen should be an illusion, including the power of the God Emperor. It's very likely that they found the power of the God Emperor from a long time ago and released a little bit, making you mistakenly think that it's true. Yudong snorted coldly. In our era, the God Emperor did not even appear, but now you're telling me that there are 2 God Emperors? Isn't this a joke? They haven't come out of seclusion yet. I think they don't exist at all. The strength of the God Emperor is so strong, what else can stop them? Yudong snorted disdainfully. He really did not believe these things. If there really was a God Emperor, wouldn't they turn the sky upside down? After hearing these words, the elders' faces alternated between green and white. Could it be that they were really fooled? Did they see it with their own eyes and feel the aura with their own eyes? Or were they deceived? This was really too terrifying. The evil spirit race's methods were really strong. Could it be that we were really deceived? The traitorous elders were already regretting to the point that their intestines turned green. Yes, you must have been deceived, the great Devis said in a deep voice. But they will definitely start a battle between the God Emperors. With their strength, they can still destroy us. The elders were still stubborn and did not completely compromise. Even if that's the case, do we have to kneel to them just to survive? Xiaotian Region Lord sneered. Back then, during the battle between the God Emperors, there were also many forces that were not willing to kneel to live. Take a closer look. How many forces that were willing to kneel to live still exist now? The words of Region Lord Xiaotian and the others directly made the elders swallow back their words. Actually, these words were not only said to these traitors, but also to the nearby elders and deacons. They hoped that such a situation would not happen again. Traitors would never have a good ending. Lee Tianyun had a deep understanding of this in this aspect. The evil spirit race's attitude towards these traitors was extremely bad. Especially after the end, it was simply a completely different attitude. They were even more disdainful of these traitors, who were even worse than beasts. Thus, they would rather die standing than live kneeling. In 10 days, execute them in front of all the disciples. Xiutian region Lord waved his hand, indicating for them to detain these people and execute them after a period of time. Yes. The guards immediately took them away. These elders' faces were ashen. What would come would come. This was the logic of the winner being the king and the loser being the bandit. It's all thanks to little friend's help that we were able to come out to rescue this time. Heavenly deity Yudong smiled at Itan Yun and said, I didn't expect you to be a 10 refinement Earth Lord. I really couldn't tell that such a genius is actually a human cultivator. It's really unbelievable. That's right. It seems like we should change the rules. Human cultivators will also be recruited. Not only them, but even the other elders had also changed their views towards the human race. Especially those elders who insisted on recruiting genius disciples. Now, their views had also changed. It wasn't that recruiting geniuses was bad, but they were recruiting people with loyalty, not a bunch of ingrates. Now, many geniuses had betrayed them. Just thinking about it made their hearts ache. At the same time, they felt that they were all old and haggard. After such a thing happened, they were much less persistent in some of their pursuits. Great Elder, this time, we are all convinced. All the elders bowed deeply to the great Devis. Even if they were at the same level, they had to bow to express their apologies. After this experience, they had learned a lot. The more they climbed up from the bottom, or the more talented they were, the more talented they were. The more talented they were, even if they received resources as a reward, they would feel that it was only right. Where would they feel the slightest bit of gratitude? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.